the Board of Library Trustees are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Board of Library Trustees to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, I'm here.
Jim Hogan.
Here.
Hamilton is not. Nita Karanjkar.
Nita here.
Jocelyn McHeleny. Oh, you mute.
Jocelyn McKelney, present.
Thank you. Charles Recchia.
Charles Recchia here.
Joan Scott. You're mute, sorry.
Joan Scott, present.
Okay, Richard Tucker.
Richard Tucker, present.
Thank you. And Michelle Rehill as present. All right. Since a majority of the board is present and it is after the hour of 5:30 p.m., I will call the meeting to order at 5:39 p.m. And the process for tonight is to interview the three candidates. The first candidate is Sandra Murphy. She is in the waiting room currently. Bernie Lynch is going to what's the thing I'm trying to say? I was going to say navigate for us, but that's not correct.
Facilitate.
Facilitate. Thank you. That's the word I wanted. All right. So Bernie's going to facilitate the questions. If at any point any of the trustees want to ask a specific question, please just wave your hand so that we know that you want to, and you can unmute yourself and ask your question when I say, oh yeah, Charles or whoever. So we have, like I said, it's a list of questions, very broad. It will be more conversational than just a grilling of the candidates. And are there any questions about the process for tonight? If nobody has any questions, then if we are already, oh, is it 5:40? It's a little bit early, but if everyone is ready, we can bring in the first candidate, Sandra Murphy.
If I
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Okay, Bernie. Sorry.
Go ahead, Bernie.
We can get started now, and that might give us people who want to take a break between candidates. I think that we would probably just do the interviews, and then at the end of the evening decide. I don't think we decided what we were going to do as the next step in terms of whether you want to make a decision tonight or have another meeting that we need to set up to actually take the vote of the board. So we can discuss that at the end as opposed to discussing the candidates as a screening committee does. A screening committee typically talks about candidates after their interview and then moves on. We would save all of that till the end of the process.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And then at the end, I think we can have the conversation and see the feeling of the board and just see how, if we want to move forward and say, yes, we feel very strongly about this one candidate, let's do it. Or if people really feel the need to mull it over and think about it, we can pick a date to meet sometime next week.
Yep.
And make the decision, have a discussion, a deeper discussion, and make a decision then.
Right.
So that will be by the will of the board. So
we're ready?
Are we
I'm
ready?
sorry, Michelle, I didn't mean to talk over you. If we're ready, I'm gonna let Sandra back in.
Okay, I think we're ready. Bring her in, please.
Here she comes.
And there she is.
Hi, Sandra.
Oh.
You're muted.
Right, I have to unmute. There we go.
That's, someone told me that's going to be the phrase of 2020. Either
Unmute.
you're muted or we can't hear you. So
That's true.
well, welcome to the meeting, Sandra. And what I'll do, Michelle, if I could, is just perhaps turn it over to you, and then you can welcome Sandra, and then move through, have each member introduce themselves.
All right, so Sandra, welcome to the Board of Trustees. We are missing one trustee tonight, and he was unexpectedly called into another work meeting, or into a work meeting that he could not miss. So that being said, Bernie is going to be facilitating this meeting for us, but I will have the board introduce themselves to you, and I'll follow my little list. Mitch,
Hi, Mitch Cullen. Nice to see you again. Vice Chair of the Library Board of Trustees.
you might recognize him. All right, Jim Hogan. Oh, you mute.
There we go. Jim Hogan, I'm the secretary of the board. Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And Hamilton's absent. Nita.
Hi,
Oh.
I'm Nita. Nice to meet you and good luck.
Nice to meet you.
Jocelyn.
Hi, Jocelyn McKelney. Nice to meet you.
And, oh, I don't know if you can hear that. It's thundering here. Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, hello, I'm Charles Recchia, board member.
All right, Joan.
Hi, I'm Joan Scott. Welcome, Sandra.
And Richard Tucker.
Hi, I'm Richard Tucker. Glad to meet you, Sandra.
Here.
Hey,
All right.
all
I think
set.
that's it. I think we're good.
All right. Well, Sandra, the process we're going to use tonight is we got roughly an hour. We have about 7 or 8, depending on how we do, topics that we'll want to speak to you about. And I'll be, as Michelle indicated, I will be facilitating the discussion. So, we just wanted to have this more of a conversation. And we'll start with, tell us about yourself. You've met all of us now, and some of us have met you before, but tell us about yourself and how you find yourself interested in the Northborough Library Director position.
Sure. So let's see. I have been a librarian for almost 10 years now. I started off as a children's librarian. I worked on the Vineyard, Martha's Vineyard, at the Oak Bluffs Library. So I started off there first part-time right after I graduated from Simmons, and then was hired in October of 2010 to be the children's librarian. I had a great time doing that. And about a year after that, the director and leaving. So I was interim director, but also we didn't have a reference librarian. So I was also the reference librarian. And we also didn't have a children's librarian. So I was kind of doing a little bit of everything, but in a small public library, that's what you do. So then let's see, I became the director about like a year and a half after that, or a year, and was the director for in total probably like 3 years. And we did fantastic things as a very small team, but a very energetic and innovative team. Then I had trouble with housing. Finding affordable housing in the Vineyard is pretty impossible. So I ended up moving off island. I took a job at the Worcester Public Library as the youth services coordinator, and oversaw, let's see, 5 branches and about 30 people. And that was a huge step up for me, but it was a great opportunity, great experience to hone my managerial skills. I learned a lot from having such a big staff, and I carry a lot of those lessons with me. Then I I had an opportunity that I didn't really want to turn down. So after that, I took a year off to travel in Southeast Asia. I volunteered for a month in a school library in Cambodia, and had an amazing experience with the kids, teaching English, but also advocating for their school library, training other librarians in the area. And just connecting with the community and the local people there. So that was pretty awesome, life-changing experience. Then after that, I traveled around for the rest of the year, came back, and was hired as the director at the Leominster Library. So I was there for 2.5 years, and I just left in August. And that experience was, for me, illuminating, and I learned a ton. I feel like I've really grown as a director since then, as a leader, and I'm excited for this next step. So I'm interested in your library because I'm looking for a smaller library where I can be closer to the staff, closer to the community, really be a part of the community. I live in Berlin, so I'm right next door to you guys. And I think your library, I've been asking around, and it has a great reputation. And after getting the full tour, a very impressive building, I think. And I see a lot of potential in your library, and would love to join your team.
Great. I just want to press down a little bit. I think that as you look at your background, I think you've got some great sort of, we have a good sense of why you made the changes that you made along the way. The Oak Bluff situation is a small town on the Vineyard, and I know that it's very expensive to live there, and that becomes difficult. The Worcester experience for a year, and then the opportunity that came up, so you grab that, and that makes sense. And we're familiar with the situation in Leominster, and that was a big step to go from the position you had in Worcester to running the city of Leominster's library, and have an understanding of what happened there, that you've decided to make a change now. But if you were looking at Northborough, where does Northborough fit into your overall career trajectory in your mind? I mean, where do you go
So
after?
first, I want to apologize. I feel like my internet is not so great. I keep on getting something popping up, so I do apologize if that creates some difficulties in hearing me. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
But Northborough, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. You go in and out. You probably got to notice that your internet is unstable.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what to do. I hate to do this in the interview process, but maybe just for a short period, just let's try turning off your video portion, turn off your camera, if that's okay with everybody.
Sure.
All right. We'll try to come back so that we can actually see you, which is helpful, but it might make the answering of the questions a little bit easier, particularly this question, which is an important one, of where does Northborough fit into your overall trajectory?
So I'm not someone who has these huge, grandiose ideas of climbing the library ladder. I'm not interested in like personal accolades or being a bigwig in the library field. I'm really interested in communities, and I'm interested. I mean, the reason why I became a librarian was because I wanted a job that was helpful to people and where I was helping others. And libraries, to me, I mean, I really believe in everything that libraries stand for. So I want to work in a community. It's more about the community to me than the actual library or the status of the position. I'm not really interested in. I feel like I've worked in all sorts of different libraries so far, and gotten a taste of every little. And now I kind of have a clearer picture of, I'd like to work in a small, medium-ish library, but where a community is diverse and interested in the library and supportive, and that wants to engage with the library. And I hear so many great things about your community. So that's why I initially applied to this position. So I'm not someone who's needs bigger and better things. I want a stable position that where the board is supportive and the staff are supportive and want to work as a team and wants to like try exciting new things and grow together. I guess that's more important to me.
Okay. For the committee, which has a listing of our topics. I'm going to drop down to the third topic. I want to get into that a little bit in terms of the library mission. I want to understand why. One thing that hasn't become clear, and I want you to sort of explain it to us, is why you ever chose to go into the field of libraries. Tell us that story.
Sure. So that's, I guess I always grew up in libraries. We didn't have a ton of money growing up, so I would go to Shrewsbury Public Library and I would go to the Northborough Public Library weekly. And I'm someone who I think was destined to be a librarian because just an information seeker and someone who constantly read and was always wanting to learn new things. And the library is an ideal place for that kind of person. I worked in my college library at MCLA, and that was my first library job. And I helped other students, checked out materials, and I just did some like grunt work at the desk. But I could really see myself behind the desk, I guess. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So can you repeat the question?
I was just wondering what your story was of what brought you to want to be a librarian.
Sure. So sorry. When I was in college and about to graduate, I had a couple of professors who told me that I should go to grad school. And I thought, nope, I am not interested in more schooling. I'm good. And the seed was kind of planted there. And to be honest, what do you do with an English major degree? You can't really, you go into many different fields, but my dad was the one who said, hey, how about being a librarian? It seems like a stable job. There's always libraries around. I think he didn't really understand budgets at that point and how they can fluctuate, but he was the one that really planted the seed of libraries in my brain. So I applied to Simmons and got in, and I remember my first day of class and I was like, these are my people. I'm home. I feel like I'm supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. And I just truly believe in what libraries stand for.
Okay, great. Well, let's use that as your jumping off point. What's your vision of a successful library? The Northborough Library, if you were appointed to be the director, how would you determine that the Northborough Library was a success?
First, I guess success would mean you could look at the numbers. So the numbers would increase, maybe not checkouts, because that's been fluctuating for years because of ebooks and also just people's habits. But you could look at programming numbers. You could look at a library attendance numbers, and those would be hopefully increasing or at least staying the same. Another aspect would be, are you reaching members of the community that maybe haven't come in before? People who have just moved to town, people who who are maybe new to the country and don't really know what American libraries can offer. Success to me is not just by the numbers. Obviously, for me, it's more how does the community engage with the staff, with the library itself? So are they supportive if we are asking for more money, for example? Do they engage with the library? Do they support the library? So that to me would be a better sign of success if other libraries in the surrounding towns are reaching out to us for to collaborate or to engage with. If all the departments in Northborough want to collaborate with the library, those kinds of things would be measures of success. And finally, is the staff happy? Do the staff love coming to work every day? That is huge. That would be a major measure of success for me.
Okay. When you look at, and you've been now in 3 different libraries, a small town, on an island, a large city, a medium-sized city. What's your vision of, or what trends do you see in the world of public libraries that most excite you?
It's hard to say right now because trends in the time of COVID or post-COVID, we don't know what they will be. Trends that I was loving seeing, I guess, was just a library that was more outward facing. Libraries who, there's a library in Colorado that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and they have a artist in residence, which I think is just fantastic. And they have a little studio for this person, and it changes whatever, maybe every 6 months or quarterly or something like that. That to me is really exciting. Showcasing community members in that way to me is very progressive. The makerspace trend is an interesting one, not one that I was 100% in love with. I think the concept is really great, but I love what it actually is doing, which is getting people to learn new technologies or also basic skills that they might not have. So offering sewing machines, for example. Sewing is not something that everyone knows how to do. Maybe of a certain age, people know how to sew, but younger people are looking to get these kind of old world skills under their belt where maybe they don't have them. Some things that we would maybe consider basic, like I just taught myself how to can using books from the library. So I've been canning in the past 3 months, and that's been really exciting. But how can the library support that kind of skills-based learning, I think is a very exciting trend. And libraries are a proponent for share culture. I mean, share culture is literally what the library does. We share materials, we share books, information, resources. So that is a trend, looking at the library as part of, as something that can provide you more than just books.
Mhm.
And skills, I guess, is a trend that I love.
Okay, great. What type of programming, along those same lines, what types of programming, when you, I assume in Leominster and certainly in Oak Bluffs, you played a major role, and probably to a degree, certainly, you could tell me, in Worcester. What are the types of programming that you would see putting in place in Northborough, or what? And give us some examples of some programming you put in place in other communities.
Yes, so programming is, I would say, one of my biggest strengths, and it's so exciting to me. And I think there is no limit to what you can do in the library or on the lawn or virtually at this point. In Oak Bluffs, we used to do crazy things, but it's a small community on an island, right? So you can get away with doing kind of wild stuff. But we had a 1950s sock hop, and we converted the program room into a soda fountain. The whole staff wore 50s costumes, and it was an amazing intergenerational program. So people from that were, jiving in the 50s came, young people came, all sorts of people were interested in that sort of like imaginative play. We had a luau with a full pig roast on the lawn once in Oak Bluffs. That was pretty awesome. And then we also would like collaborate with local talent. So there was a very young high school graduate, and he was a budding photographer, kind of making his way in the world, and ended up moving to New York City, and he's doing great things now. But we got a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to geek the library, like build a campaign. This was a bunch of years ago. I don't know if you guys remember it, but we had, he came in and set up a whole photography studio, and over 2 days we photographed community members and then made a giant photo display in the community room and had it open for 1 or 2 months, and people would come in and everyone got their picture taken, and it said, I geek, and then whatever you're into. Geek meaning like I'm super obsessed with, or I'm really excited by XYZ. So mine was adventure, and I had a very cool photo of myself, and it said I geek adventure. So reaching out to people in the community, collaborating with them based on whatever their talents are. I'm not above dressing up for children's programs. I love kids programs. I was once Elsa at a Frozen party. with the wig and dress and everything, makeup. And we had 300 people come to that Frozen party. And it was one of the best memories I have. There's a picture of me as Elsa dressed up with like about 50 little Elsas who also came to the party. And it was really hilarious and fun. In Leominster, I put together a how-to festival. So this is kind of what I was talking about with the skills-based programming. So we had, I don't even remember, like 25 people come, and it was an all-day thing. And there was something to learn at each station. So one person was how to repair a bicycle, how to patch a hole in the wall, how to fold a fitted sheet was a very popular one. And then we had some keynote speakers that were doing like ukulele class or, other sorts of things. So that was a full day event that got a lot of community members excited. I'm also really into mini golf in the library. I think it's an amazing way to let people see parts of the library that they might not visit. For children, it's an amazing way for them to see the library that they might not be allowed to go other parts of the building, or that, they never would think to go up to the second floor because there's nothing up there for them. And then I love homegrown programs that I do myself, like cookbook club. I had 25 people come every month to my Leominster cookbook club, and that was a lot of fun. In Worcester, I was trying to lead by example for my staff. So I store to them and do a weekly story time for kind of like preschool age. Well, they're a little bit younger, but they ranged really. And most of these children did not speak English at home. So that was a fun experience and a great learning opportunity for me, because I got the chance to adapt my story time to fit their needs and their level and where they were at. So those are just a few programs that I've done. I mean, that I would say programming is one of my major interests. So I would love to bring some super exciting programs to Northborough.
Great, thank you. Now, if I could, going back to more of the traditional sort of vision of libraries, collection of books, materials. What's your philosophy in managing the library's collection? How do you go about building and maintaining the collection over time?
Sure. I mean, this is another one of my main interests because I am a librarian. So I love collection management and collection development. To me, it's extremely important that the collection is appealing to people. I want people to walk in the library and not be overwhelmed by the amount of books you have or movies or whatever. I want them to look at the stacks and be able to find what they want easily, preferably without asking someone. That would be a sign that we've done it well with signage and everything, that you can find your own material, but of course we're willing to help if you can't. I want things to be orderly because librarian, and I want things to be just in its right place, so I'm a huge fan of weeding. I love to get in there. I just weeded all of Leominster's nonfiction collection, which was super intense, but that's what I did during quarantine. And I couldn't do it for another minute longer after I was finished the project, but it was something that should be done in a more manageable speed, not something you want to really do in an emergency. Of course, sometimes you have to do an emergency weed, but I'd rather have a schedule for these things and do it in a way that's more organized than have to do it all at once.
How do you decide what to weed? How do you decide this book stays, this book goes?
Well, that is, first of all, you never do it alone because it's just your opinion, right? I try to do everything with a neutral mind, but I'm also not an expert in everything. Surprisingly. So I was weeding the nonfictions collection in Leominster with my coworker, and I would history is not my forte. So I let her weed history and then I would double check her work basically. So you work as a team to make sure that you're not weeding things that you might need down the road. There's always a joke in libraries, though, that as soon as you read the book, the next day someone's going to ask for it. That's literally just what happens every single time. But also, there's an amazing book called The Core Collection, and it's like it's a very expensive book, and it comes out, I don't know, once maybe every other year or something, and it tells you everything that would be ideal to have in your core collection. And this goes for fiction, nonfiction, children's. They have all sorts of them. So it's this massive, massive book, huge tomes, and you kind of go through and you're like, all right, here's this book. Is it in the core collection? No, but is it relating to local history or something that the community might be interested in? Yes, okay, then I'll keep it. So that's how I approach it. I also like to touch every single book that I read. You can do some things like run lists that tell you, okay, these are the books that haven't been checked out in 3 years, but I really like to get my hands on each and every book to make sure that there's not weird bookmarks in there or writing, or that it's in good condition and that sort of thing.
Okay, great. Do any board members have a question at this point? Comments? Okay. Well, let's move on to, you mentioned you're not an expert in everything. So let's talk about your management style. How do you, tell us about your management style. What's it look like? And again, any examples you have, of your management style?
So yeah, I'm not an expert in everything, and I don't need to be. And I trust and love to hire people that know things that I don't, so that we can collaborate and work together. I have a very open door policy, and I expect my staff to come and communicate to me what they need, or their concerns, or projects that they want to do, or really just anything. I really need that feedback from my staff so I know where to go next, what to do next. So I have a very collaborative style. I'm also someone that's not micromanagey. I don't want that for myself, and I don't think anybody else really loves that kind of style of management. So I trust my staff to do their work. And if they need help, certainly they can come to me. I would love to help people or talk them through it. Sometimes people just need an ear or someone to kind of hash things out together. So I'm supportive in that way, but also just let people kind of run with it. If they have a great idea, I want them to try it, even if it might fail. I'm not afraid of failure. I'm not afraid to try new things. And I think that's a sign of a good manager, someone who supports the staff in what they want to learn and what they want to do as well. I'm very big on staff attending conferences and workshops and learning new things about libraries and communicating with other libraries. I think that's extremely important. In Leominster, I increased the staff, the budget for professional development with the board, because that's how important it is to me. So I would send almost 10 people to the MLA conference. I sent people to ALA and the conference, the Urban Libraries Conference in Brooklyn. Even if they left the library the next month, to me, it was successful because they learned something, they got excited about coming to work every day, and they wanted to try new things. So that's, yeah, I think that covers everything. I love to collaborate with staff. I love to learn with them and grow with them. And I'm really looking for a team that gets excited to come to work and is inspired.
Okay. Would you say that that's your main way of motivating your employees? Is in that way, or how do you make sure that they remain motivated and engaged with their work? Is it the professional development? What are the methods?
Sure. So I think it's really, it has to be led by the staff. So if someone is interested in trying a new program, let them try it. Or if they want to change the collection, or if they want any project that staff wants to do, I believe in supporting that, because then that gives them buy-in. It makes them interested in what they're doing. and it engages them with their work. And when people like what they're doing, they want to come to work every day. They want to support their manager and work collaboratively with them. So I believe that people need to be excited about what they're doing.
All right. Let's go to the sort of the flip side of that. What have you had any time in your career? And obviously, this is a public meeting, so we have to be somewhat limited in what we can talk about here. But have you disciplined employees? Have you had to deal with employees that aren't, that need to be held accountable in some way? Attendance or bad performance or anything of that sort?
I definitely have. It's obviously no one's favorite thing to do. But I think the first way that I approach it is, let's say I had a staff member who was coming in late consistently. And to me, that says there's something going on at home or that's not allowing them to get here on time. So I talked to the staff person one-on-one and just said, hey, is everything okay? I noticed you've been coming in consistently like 12 minutes late. I just want to make sure that you're okay. And if there's anything I can do to support you, I just need you to come in on time. And she said, it's been so hard getting my kids ready for school in the morning. So that's why that's been happening. But thank you for mentioning it, and I will do better. And she was better from then on. So simple things like that are just a one-on-one conversation. Then I've had some major issues. And I've worked extensively with HR on how to correct behaviors and to address instances which definitely should not be happening. So I feel like I have a very good handle on the progressive discipline procedures. And I think I have a very empathetic way of addressing these things. I'm not a disciplinarian. I don't love to do it, but I understand that it has to be done. And I do, like I said, I trust my staff to be adults and to do their jobs correctly. So that's where I start from. I don't start from a place where I think you're going to do something wrong or you're trying to abuse your position or whatever. I trust people from the outset, and if there needs to be some correction to what's going on, then I just very calmly and empathetically address it. But that being said, I've had some serious issues, and it's made me better as a manager. And I can be firm when I need to be, but mostly I also understand that people are human, and most mistakes or things that they shouldn't be doing are sometimes, most of the time, it's really because they have something going on in their own lives. So I understand that as well.
Okay. What do you look for when you're hiring people for positions? What's the major factor that you look at when you're hiring people?
It's hard to say because I'm someone who is very intuitive. And when I interview people, I kind of just get a feeling about them, or I can hear it in their tone of voice. But I am looking for an energy, an excitement, some creative thinking, a willingness to work as a team. All of those things are of interest to me, but I would say one of my major skills is hiring people. I'm really good at it. I will definitely toot my own horn at that. I have hired some amazing people, part-time people, full-time people. And one of my prides, or what's something I'm very proud of, is that many part-time people that I've hired have gone on to become librarians or who are in library school right now. And that would be one of my proudest accomplishments is, someone who, hey, I'm interested in libraries, I want to get a part-time job, is now a librarian. That to me is exciting. So I look for a spark, I guess.
Okay, good. Moving on to, we looked at that sort of the internal relationships. What's how do you build relationships with the community at large? How do you sort of engage and get the community interested in the library or supportive of the library?
So the first step is to show up. So if there are boards and commissions in town, go to a meeting, introduce yourself, say, hi, I'm from the library. How can we collaborate? We're not even asking what I can do, but just being there. And once people get to know you and see what you're doing, then they'll be more interested and more apt to want to collaborate. Going to local events that are happening in town so people get to know you. And outreach is one of my big things. So this kind of ties into that, but hosting programs for local community members or inviting them to have them in the library. I hired a part-time outreach person in Leominster, and she would just go out to senior centers and assisted living facilities, the Spanish American Center, and just show up and say, hi, I'm from the library. Is there anything that we can do for you? So that to me is very forward-thinking, community-facing librarianship. So that's how I like to approach it.
Okay. How about working with other town departments? Is that, do you have some examples of how you've worked with other town departments?
My favorite example is, so in Oak Bluffs, I convinced the DPW to bring out all of their trucks, dump trucks, backhoes, like literally any heavy moving vehicle, park them in our parking lot for a morning. And we did a Touch a Truck program, which I think is one of the best collaborations between departments. It's fun for everyone. Kids get to climb all over the machines, sit in the bucket truck, they have a blast. And it also involves the fire station and the police station. So we had fire trucks and police cars. They got to sit in the back of a police car, which hopefully is the only time they have to do that. Beep the horn and play with the microphone. It's hilarious stuff. So that to me is a really like holistic example of how all town departments can participate in one event. So that's my most favorite one. But I find it very, I love to communicate and collaborate with other departments. In Leominster, during quarantine, installed a hotspot in both the senior center and the veterans center, which share a parking lot. So effectively, it allowed the whole parking lot, this very large parking lot, to be wired for wireless internet. And that to me is a small step to collaboration, but everyone was very thankful. So they could go to that shared parking lot and also the library parking lot in order to use Wi-Fi. But it doesn't have to be a huge collaboration like Touch a Truck. It could just be reaching out and saying, hey, do you guys want to have some internet? That's all.
Right. Now that sharing the Wi-Fi, who was that intended to benefit? Was that intended to benefit those departments or?
Well, the community, but
Right.
also it benefited the departments because then these people were sitting in their parking lot and they would get a lot of, I guess, good press and also could read their flyers and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right. In terms of working with other libraries in the region, do you have experience or examples of how you've done that to build sort of the impact of libraries by working with other communities?
That to me is so important. And in my role in Leominster, I felt like I was this really big library surrounded by these other smaller libraries. And I thought, why can't I use my resources to help the library community at large? So one thing I did, which is a little unconventional, but we hosted a women's self-defense class. So we invited librarians from our surrounding area to come and do a private with a local karate teacher do a private class on self-defense. And then we also held that for the community at large as well. So I love to host speakers for my staff, but then also invite other libraries to it. And in Leominster, I got the chance to do that a bunch of times. I think it's so important to collaborate with your fellow librarians and to know what other libraries are doing. I mean, we're all in this together. So during quarantine, I was meeting with about 6 other library directors weekly via Zoom, and we would just kind of commiserate sometimes, but also just put our plans together for how we were approaching reopening. And it was extremely helpful to be able to do that.
Okay, good. Any questions or anybody has at this point? Mitch?
Hi, I was curious as to any experience you have with local fundraising. And what I mean by that is going out to the community to look for whether it be sponsors for a particular event or program, or to solicit donations for increasing an operating budget or for a library's endowment fund.
Sure. I have a lot of ideas about fundraising. I haven't gotten to do all of them, which I guess is lucky for me. But in Oak Bluffs, I had to do a decent amount of fundraising. We would have our annual mini golf fundraiser, and I started that, and they're still doing it today. So that benefited the library friends, and programming thereby, and also collections. And that got a lot of interest. I've always wanted to do like this is like homegrown, like small aspect of fundraising, but I always wanted to around the holidays have like a giving tree and have little ornaments on it. And maybe it would be like one ornament would say $15 to buy books in the children's room. You could take off an ornament and sponsor that thing or that program. That's an idea I had. I have done a lot of work on, I rewrote the policy, the donation policy in Leominster to make it more, I guess, open to other possibilities. So the way it was written before I got there was that it was pretty much donations were used to buy books. I wanted it to be open for other uses like programming, for example. So I worked with my assistant director to rewrite that and kind of reapproach what we use and how we use our donations. So also as a children's librarian, I was always out in the community. Luckily, I knew a lot of community members. It was a small town, trying to get summer reading prizes and donations to support programming. So I wouldn't say I have a huge amount of experience in it. I would love to learn more and to grow that aspect of my knowledge base, but I'm very interested and open to fundraising.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's that's probably a good segue to talk about another aspect of the position that is certainly important. I do want to come back to something on the outreach section in a moment, but let's talk about your financial management experience. What's been your role in developing the budget for the library? How does the process work, and what's the approach that you use in developing the budget?
Sure. So I've managed budgets of about $425,000, and then I managed $1.5 million budgets, and somewhere in between as well. I approach the budget. I'm not like a greedy library director. I have a vision for what I'll need for the year and where I'd like to bring the library in the next year. So when I make my budget, I approach it in that way. And I also obviously take into regard what's going on in the town or the city. Obviously now this year is going to be a bit tricky, but like for example, last year or this year, I guess, when I was making the budget for Leominster, I wasn't trying to like get more and more and more. I knew that if I was level funded with a little bit more for the professional development, that I could do all the things I wanted to do. So I was advocating actually just to be level funded. which in the time of COVID worked out very well. I had to go in Leominster in front of a city council and the mayor initially, and kind of plead my case and explain what I was going to use the money for. I'm also someone who is really good at using the budget in a creative way, especially in regards to staff. So in Leominster, I created several positions, which when I first got there, the staff was, it was very difficult for them to do their actual full-time jobs because they were often on the desk covering service desk positions. So I created a part-time reference desk person, made sure to hire someone who could speak multiple languages. That was important for me because of the community that was coming in. I created a part-time outreach person. I created a part-time teen room assistant. So what I did, and that was all with staying level funded. Actually, that was all done because the former director and the assistant director were making much more than I was and my assistant director. So that was all just like surplus money that I could have given back to the town, but I had a different idea of how to use it. And that allowed staff to focus more on their actual positions and kind of grow and expand their services in that way. So that's how I approach the budget.
Great. What about grant writing? Do you have much experience? I know you mentioned the Bill and Melinda Gates grant that you received, but other grants that you've received for or written in?
Yep, not extensive, but a few. So in Oak Bluffs, I also wrote a grant, an LSTA grant. It was for, let's see if I can remember. Oh my gosh, it was so long ago. I don't remember, but it was for something very wonderful and innovative. And in Leominster, I co-wrote a grant with a coworker to bring a traveling exhibit on the Transcontinental Railroad to the library. And we also got the funds in the grant to do like 4 programs during that same month. So I don't have extensive grant writing knowledge, but I feel like I'm very good at it because I can think globally to how to, I guess, like how to collaborate with other local community members to make the grant the most successful it can be.
Okay. Right. What about entrepreneurial? It's kind of along the lines, I think, of Mitch's question regarding fundraising, but sort of self-supporting initiatives that the library has done, or the use of technology to expand the presence of the library and its mission within the community.
Oh, so do you mean social media?
Well, sure.
Okay, so I created both Instagram and Facebook accounts for actually all of the library. No, well, most of the libraries that I have worked in. So social media to me is a very useful tool, and it changes constantly. So different social medias are reaching different people. TikTok is for younger people. We just created that a couple months ago in Leominster and had gone viral in the first like couple weeks that we had it. So I'd love to use social media to promote what the library is doing. And I think that's where a lot of people are right now, especially now during COVID, where they can't physically be together. I also was responsible for redesigning, well, not me personally, but I worked with someone who redesigned the Oak Bluffs Library and the Leominster Library's website. That to me was very important because I wanted a place where people could get all the information about the library in one spot. I find the Leominster Library's website very handsome, but I'm a little partial. So I am very proud of that project and just went live in July. But I also used the website to do many different things. So you can book a room, but you can also donate on the site, and we kind of expanded and tried to approach the donations page in a different way. So I think the website is a big way to reach people. I always wanted to get an app for a library. I think that would be exciting. Very convenient way for people to put books on hold and that sort of thing too. I know CW Mars has an app, so maybe taking advantage of that.
Great. In both of I think in both Oak Bluffs and Leominster, from what I heard, you from your references, you conducted a rebranding. What's that all about?
I did. So Oak Bluffs neither of those libraries had a logo. And to me, a logo isn't just a design that you put on bags, but it is also that. To me, it can portray like the warmth or whatever mission you're trying to portray. You guys have a very nice logo, but when people see it out in the community, I want them to associate this image with the library. I want it to be synonymous. And after you see it out in the community on bags or, bumper stickers or whatever, you get to feel like it's a familiar place. And for people who maybe haven't come in the library, it might make it more approachable. Oh, I've seen that logo around. What is that place? Oh, it's the library. Cool. Maybe I should go check it out. Branding to me is very important. I very creative with signage, and that kind of plays into, I want people to know where things are in the building and how to find them. This is very like library nerdy stuff, but there's an Indian philosopher called or library scientist actually, Ranganathan, and he created the 5 laws of library science. So getting really deep into library science right now, but one of them is, one of the laws is to make things easy for the user. And I truly believe that it should be very seamless and easy for people to use the library. I want people to find it to be very exciting and I don't know, like a very positive experience when people leave. So kind of got off track there, but I get really excited about library science. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It gives us a sense of what the branding exercise was all about. Let's talk about the facility though for a moment. You saw the library. What experience do you have with right now? The town of Northborough does not have a facility manager. They're hoping to have one in place at some point in the near future. That is a goal that the town has, to have one person in charge of all the facilities. You'd be in charge of the facility, the library facility. So if something goes wrong, you'd be the one who has to, get the person in to fix it, or you'd have to climb up on the roof yourself and fix the roof, or something of that sort.
I'm not afraid of heights, so I'm very.
All right, good. What's been your experience with facility management? What do you think of the Northborough Library?
I thought your library was so lovely. I really got a kick out of it. I think the building is fantastic. The old section, the card catalog was still there and there were still cards in it, which really got me jazzed. To me, it's bright, it's warm. The children's room is fantastic. It's very adorable. So I think your library is great. I really was pleasantly surprised by it when I went the other day. In Oak Bluffs, I was in charge of the building only in that I had to communicate with the DPW department head as to our needs, and it was a challenge. He had a lot of things on his plate, and so dealing with another flood because of the HVAC system was not really on his priority list. But we had some major problems in Oak Bluffs, and the HVAC was one of them. And there were leaks just all the time in the summer. Eventually we ended up putting in mini splits. So I think facilities management, when you're a director, is really about advocating for the building. It's something that I've definitely learned a lot, especially in Leominster, because I had a full-time craftsman who was fantastic. I just like old world skills that you can't really find these days. And he would fix everything, but I would collaborate with him a lot and work on what needed to be done. So I kind of gave him a list of, okay, here, let's do this, this, and this month. and he would kind of just go do it. So that was amazing to have. So when Northborough does get that person, he's going to be my best friend.
Yep.
Because that is the person you need in your corner. So facilities management is definitely something I've gotten a lot better at, and I'm very organized. And I can kind of see down the line as to what needs to be done. So I think I'll be very successful with your building.
Okay. Let's try your camera back on for the last couple questions here.
Let's
If we
try
could.
it.
See how that works. All right. One of the relationships that we haven't spoken about is your relationship with the Board of Trustees. What does that look like? Oh,
Sure. So ideally, it's collaborative. Is it working?
yep.
No. Is it working? Yeah. Okay. I love a collaborative. Is that what you asked? What's
Yes.
your ideal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good, because you kind of cut out. All right, so collaborative relationship with the board. I think the board is should be a representation of the community. So people from all aspects of the community have a voice at the table and represent different pockets and interest groups. To me, the board sets the tone and the vision for the library. The director is someone who makes the vision a reality. So that's what I'd like from the board. Clear expectations and goals, and help me. I think the board is supposed to help me do my job, and I'm supposed to help the staff do their job. So I would love to have a very collaborative, open, honest relationship with a board.
Okay, great. Does the board have any questions that I haven't asked yet that you're interested in? Richard? Oh, you're muted. There you go. Yep, you're still muted. There you go.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi.
You've spoken about some of your successes in advocating for your libraries during budgetary discussions. What are you thinking about the next couple of years post-COVID, which everyone expects these to be pretty lean years, especially in municipal budgets? Do you have any? Have you had any thoughts about that?
Sure, I've been thinking a lot about post-COVID, or even like going through the pandemic, what the budgets will look like. Ultimately, I want to work with what I've been given, but I also don't want to settle for not that much. So I would make sure to work very collaboratively with the town administrator, and if there's can't remember the position title, and whoever is in the down, to make sure that the library can grow monetarily in a way that's comfortable for the town. So if we can be level funded, I feel like we can do more with less, but
Yeah. You may want to shut
someone
off.
who advocates for the library.
You might want to shut off your camera.
Sorry, you
again.
guys. Okay, sorry about that.
It's all right.
So yeah, someone who can work within what I've been given, basically. But it might be something where we need to do some sort of homegrown programming for a while, so that we can put our funds towards something else. Or we were talking when I was on a tour of your library about that the book budget was cut. So how can we advocate in the community to raise funds for that and help the Friends do that? And so yes, I've been thinking a lot about what it will look like, and hopefully we'll get back on our feet soon,
Okay. Other questions that people have? Jim? Go ahead, Jim. Oh, I don't know why you're not. Yep. Jim, you're muted again.
Try that. There you go. You're on. You good?
No, it's not. It's not working. This isn't good. Try it again, Jim. You're muted. Try unmuting one more time. Yeah.
Can our host see anything that will help Jim?
Who's our host? Is it Deborah?
Yes.
Deborah?
Yes, I have been trying to unmute Jim from my end and I can't seem to do it. I have a choice to ask to unmute and it doesn't happen.
Okay.
Can I pop in here? It's probably because he has headphones plugged in and the headphones do not have a microphone attached. That's my guess.
Okay,
All right. Let's give that a try.
Unmute again.
unmute again.
Unmute. Unmute. Okay. Now try it, Jim.
Okay.
Hey, Jim.
Hey.
Hey, that was you, Jocelyn, who figured that out? Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
I'm not quite as sanguine about the post-pandemic future as some people are. So my question is, have you given any thought, or are you giving any thought to changes that the pandemic might be causing in our society in general that will require different approaches from the library to the community in the ways in which we deliver services and deliver information and relate with our patrons?
Yes,
Good question.
I think about this constantly, and I think it keeps most librarians up at night. But ultimately, Jim, libraries evolve constantly, and this might be another shift in our evolution. So it might mean that libraries look different in 1 to 5 years. We don't know. Maybe things will go back to quote unquote normal. But I believe that librarians, out of almost everyone, are going to be really good at adapting to whatever situation comes up. In fact, I found that even as COVID hit and okay, no one's no longer allowed in the building, we were already pretty well prepared, libraries, to serve the people at home. As long as they had an internet connection, even then, okay, let's install some hotspots. So I am very positive in the power of librarianship. And I think no matter what happens, the library will be there to support the community members and the community at large. And the library is a neutral space, right? So when and if people are allowed in the building, everyone is welcome. And that is extremely important to me. And I think it's a meeting place. It's a place to commune and connect with others. And the library will always be that.
Thank you.
Along those lines, though, that is a fascinating question that Jim answered, and we're almost out of time here, but that Jim asked, is there anything in the world of libraries right now that is sort of speaking to changes that might be on the horizon? When we look at development trends, there's all this talk about people moving out of the cities and so on. And so communities, municipalities are looking at that and saying, well, maybe the towns of the future are going to look different because, and the towns that are prospering will be different towns that are out there now. Is there anything that people have spoken about in libraries that looks different, that it's saying might be different in a post-COVID world?
The most different probably is how people spend time in the library. So right now, people are not even coming in the building for the most part, and they're just picking up their items outside the building. When people are allowed in the building, they're not going to be allowed right now to sit and read a newspaper or hang out and play with toys in the children's room. And that's jarring for librarians. What does it mean? Where will patrons' relationship be with the library if you can't make those connections with the librarians themselves or with the services and programs that we offer? But I find it to be overall positive. Like I said, I think we'll adapt no matter what, as we already have. I haven't seen any like huge trends beyond just Zoom programming and trying to reach patrons virtually. I actually think curbside is hugely popular, and people are going to want that after post-COVID and for years to come. I've been using it myself. I go pick up my book.
Okay, great. Other questions?
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so I think what I'm hearing from most librarians is that we want curbside to stay for a very long time.
Okay. Any other questions that people have? Okay. Closing comments from you or Sandra?
Sure. I just wanted to say that I'm grateful. I'm first of all disappointed that we can't meet in person. Obviously, I'm much better in person than I am virtually. But I want to say that I'm grateful for being able to tour your library during COVID, and I think I really see my strengths being appropriate, and I think it's kind of what you guys are looking for. I'm without selling myself too much. I'm feeling really excited about this position, and I hope you are too. But either way, good luck in your search, and I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for chatting with me.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Does anybody need a break? We're a little bit behind, but
I'd like to stand up and just to give full credit, it was Katrina that came up with the speaker thing for Jim. That wasn't me.
Thank you, Katrina.
Miss Katrina, maybe you should have been host. I just
Oh,
wanted to
no,
let
you're
you-
good. You're very
Thank you,
welcome.
Katrina.
You
I
got
just wanted to let you guys know that Jennifer Inglis is in the waiting room. So whenever you want to begin again, we can just say the word.
Okay.
please.
I could use some more water.
all
Yeah,
right.
we just have a minute break here.
1 minute.
1
Yep.
minute.
Oh, that rain is something, huh? Yeah. That was just the first candidate. Oh, my God. You want to go to this? I gotta go back.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
Bring it.
We ready? Okay. I'm bringing Jennifer in.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Good to see you again. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn you quickly over to Michelle to introduce herself and the other members of the committee. You remember that Michelle, though, from the screening committee. So, Michelle, all yours.
Yes. Hi. And I gave you the tour on Friday. So hi,
That's
Jen.
right.
That's right.
Thank you.
Good to have you here tonight. And I will sort of go down the list. I'll turn it over to Mitch.
Hi, I'm Mitch Cohen, Vice Chair of the Library Trustees. Very nice to see you again, Jennifer.
Yes, you as well.
And Jim Hogan. Unplug your headphones, Jim. And then unmute. You're still on mute.
Go ahead.
Are you there, Jim?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yep,
There you are.
you were momentarily. I think Jim's telling you, Jim, we're having trouble. There you go. You're off mute now. You can say it again.
I think the
Nope.
headphones,
All right,
have,
Jim.
headphones
We're
have to be
close.
unplugged.
I think he's double. Are you good there, Jim? Nope.
Nope.
All right.
We'll come.
No, we'll come back to you,
We'll
Jim.
come back.
We're gonna move to Nita.
Hi, Jennifer. This is Nita.
Anita.
And then Jocelyn.
Hi, Jennifer. Jocelyn McKellany. Nice to meet you.
Hi, you as well. Thank you.
Charles.
Hello, this is Charles Recchia. Nice to meet you, Jennifer.
Hi, you as well. Thanks.
And Joan.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm Joan Scott. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Richard.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm Richard Tucker. Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
All right. And again, you know me, Michelle Wehill, and you know Bernie Lynch, who is facilitating these interviews for us.
Sure. Thanks.
All right.
We have one more trustee who could not be here tonight, so I just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
All right.
So Jennifer, let's. You've met us all now. Tell us briefly. Oh, there's Jim says hi.
Hi.
And the see, Jim's very creative. So
Yes.
let's tell us about your briefly. We have about an hour
Okay.
for this, and we have about 7 or 8 topics that we want to get through. So if you could just give us an overview of your career, why you got into library, the world of libraries would be an interesting start, and then your career, and then why Northborough?
Okay. I think when I was a kid, I'm kind of like my daughter is now, where she's so into school. And when I was in 2nd grade, I decided I was going to be a teacher. And that's all I did. And that's all I wanted to be. And I became a teacher. And during the summers, I worked at the local public library and realized that that was a way better fit for me. I was always the teacher telling people to look things up, that it was, memorizing facts wasn't as important as knowing where to find them, those kinds of things. I had my shelf in my classroom cataloged, and I decided to shift into libraries about 20 years ago. And my cousin's wife was a librarian. And when I met her, it just like everything clicked. And since then, I've been in libraries, working my way up. I honestly went into management so that I could pay my student loans. But I do really love it. I love dealing with the finances. I like being in charge. I'm a pretty good meeting runner. I like to support staff doing really good work. But I also am definitely an administrator. I love public libraries specifically because of the opportunity that they provide for people. So for some people, it is, you know, a busy working professional's audiobook that they can listen to on their long drive. For other people, it is very much a lifeline to applying for jobs or medical insurance or anything like that. And we can provide access to resources that people don't necessarily have at home or choose not to have at home. We also, you know, I love reading, and, you know, it's not kind of the cool thing to say, but books are my jam. And, you know, I'm definitely a people person, but I do believe in the literacy piece of libraries and having libraries be part of an educated society. You know, over the last 6 months of COVID, you know, I have aging in-laws and I have a daughter who is fully remote, and we made the really tough decision to relocate, and we are moving south of the city, which is, you know, a long drive. And we are actually going to be living with my in-laws probably in a month. Our house sold today.
Oh,
So when we just, yeah, it was, when we decided to make the move, unfortunately, that meant that I needed to find another job. And I love Linfield. I love the town. I love my staff. It's, you know, it's really hard to think about leaving, especially in the middle of this pandemic. But when I saw that Northborough was open, and, you know, I used to work with Bonnie, and I talked with her a little bit about it. And I feel like the size of the community is similar. It's, you know, a professional working community, and, you know, it's about the similar size. And I'm excited to be able to do the same kind of work I'm able to do in a community of a similar size. It feels like things are, I don't know, when Michelle gave me the tour the other day, I just felt like I sort of just fit right in, and I could see working with people. So I'm excited to find another opportunity now. I was a little worried that I might have to leave my job and not find work right away. And you know, the timing is perfect. So I'm glad this opportunity was here, and I'm glad you all have been so welcoming.
great. So you were in Whitman, and then you went to Nahant, and there seems to be it's somewhere between 2010 and 2012. There's a gap there.
Yep.
So
yeah, so I changed jobs a couple of times because my husband went to the UK for his MBA.
Yep.
And when he came back, it was the middle of the economic recession that we all thought was the worst thing that was going to happen in our lifetimes in our libraries, and figuring out how to redo that. And I took a job that paid a lot more money. And then we were supposed to move to the UK. And I ended up leaving one job, and we were supposed to go to London, and then the government in London changed hands and his visa didn't go through. And we had rehomed our cats and gotten rid of our cars, and we're living in my in-laws' house. We always seem to end up there. And we ended up moving to Vermont for a couple of years, and I couldn't find a job in Vermont. So I applied for 126 jobs and I worked part-time in retail and loved it because I'm that kind of person. And, you know, then I just really missed being in libraries. And so the Nahant opportunity came up, and we decided that, you know, coming back made more sense than staying in Vermont and struggling to make ends meet. So I came back without my husband, and then he came back a year later. And then I was in Nahant for several years, and I loved that. It's a very small town, but it's not at all sort of small town vibe. It's a very cool place, very cool building. I loved it, but my dream job opened in Boston, and that was what I sort of imagined myself. I wanted to be Amy Ryan. I wanted to be the president of the Boston Public Library. And I took that job. I got it. Nobody was more surprised than me. And I quickly realized that it was, 8 or 9 hours of meetings every day, very little interaction with the public. And I was working there during the great missing art situation, and Amy Ryan ended up leaving, and it was a really chaotic time. And there's a residency requirement in Boston, and we were trying to buy a house or a condo, and it was $750,000 for a 2-bedroom with no parking, and it just didn't seem right. And my daughter, we were thinking about her for school, and so we just decided that all of the perks of the position or all of the downfalls of having to live there and not doing library work, we decided that I would stay home with my daughter for a year and then start working again. And that's what I did. And we moved back to Salem, and then I took this job in Linfield. And now, once again, we have a crisis, and we have sworn that we will never move again. We're moving into my husband's childhood home. So I said, if we're moving again, it's to buy a vacation home somewhere when I retire. Can't do it anymore.
All right. So you'd be looking at Northborough then as a step to or what exactly does Northborough represent to you in terms of?
I am so tired, honestly, to be frank with you, that, I didn't think I'd be looking for a job again for a while. I can't promise that I will retire from Northborough. I still have 20 years in the system, but I also have a lot of other things in my life that I want to focus on, and being the president of the BPL is not one of them anymore. I'm really happy working with an excellent team, trying to find really interesting ways to provide services. It's really important to me that I fit in somewhere, and I felt really nice. I was so glad that I had the opportunity to go to the library the other day, because it just made me, it was a little awkward to think about going somewhere where I hadn't actually met anybody in person yet, and honestly, I just, I want to lead a good team. I want to be in the field, and, I want to write my murder mystery novel and have my daughter have a really great life. So my priorities, I think, have shifted from 10 years ago. So.
Great. Well, let's talk about your vision of a library. You become we have a sense of why you got into library science, library information science, and public libraries in particular. In your mind, what's the vision? What's your vision of a successful library in 2020, or if you'd like, 2021?
Yeah. So I am really hopeful that we can find a way that libraries are still vital and recognized. I'm a little worried that the longer this pandemic goes on and the longer it takes us to be able to resume some normalcy, that people are going to start getting used to not having us around. And I think it's going to be a big focus of the next year or two to make sure that our normal patron base is engaged, and that we work really hard to try and find ways to stay engaged with folks who aren't using Facebook and Instagram or, whatever social media things we do that are so popular and so useful. But we have people who don't use those things. And in Linfield, I was just in an interesting thing where it was 1 in 10 households don't have a computer at home. And that's not something you would really think of in an affluent community. But many seniors don't have computers at home, and that doesn't mean that they don't want to be engaged. It's just their choice. And so we're currently working on a project to circulate laptops and stuff to send home with hotspots so that people can access the internet at home I was just reading about something today about this one library sent postcards home to every household to let them know of what was going on. And I just thought that was kind of a brilliant way of connecting, because I think we're going to need to spend the next year and a half keeping those connections, because we're very good at connecting with people. There are always areas we could do better, but it's going to be especially important in the next year or two.
Okay. So leaving aside and I sort of led us down that path with COVID, but I mean, what do you see as the purpose of a library in a town, in a municipality?
Yeah. You know, I think there are a lot of people where some other things aren't necessarily that third place. You know, that's a common sort of conception of libraries. That might be a third space, or your favorite restaurant is a third space, or, you know, if you're a sports kid, that's your third space. If you're a parent, the after school program is a third space. And a library can be a third space, but it's also a safe space for people. And I think that the need for a place where people can come and do their business and not have to pay for it, that is such a key part of public library services, is that anybody can come in and use your stuff. That's part of the collective experience of libraries. And if we're doing our job right, everybody should feel like they sort of own a piece of it. And, you know, if it's just to look up a dryer model from Consumer Reports, or if it's to, you know, to fill out those tax forms, or if it's to do the early literacy thing, there's nothing quite like the library. And I'm noticing a struggle with that now, trying to explain how we're different from things like grocery stores, and how we're different from, you know, like the school, for example, is on the emergency management team in Linfield, but neither me nor the head of the senior center are part of the emergency management team. And I think both of us have a lot to offer in that conversation, and also in the breadth of our services that we provide. You know, we truly serve from birth to death, and there isn't really any other thing in a community that does that. So I think that's the key thing, the message around that. Now, there are lots of things to think of in terms of, you know, technology and, you know, automation and robots and VR and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's definitely a place for that kind of exciting, fun thing for people to play with and bring home with them and stuff. But libraries really are about that space, whether or not it's inside the walls, or if we go out to a community and do, you know, the story time like Katrina did this weekend, or, you know, if somebody goes to the senior center and does something, or a Rotary luncheon. You know, there are so many ways to make those connections in the community.
Talk to us about it would give us examples as we go through these, but what type of programming have you introduced in your library? What do you see as the type of programming that you might be interested in bringing forward in Northborough?
Yeah, sure. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask. Is the director in charge of programming in Northborough, or is that, you know, in concert with other staff, or?
Michelle, you want to?
Yes. The director in the past has done some programming, but the professional staff each has a piece of that, and they contribute certain things.
Yeah. So I have a lot of examples actually of programming. I think in Whitman, one of the things that we did that was really great was we launched programming around job resources. And we noticed that our resume books were going out. And this was in 2008, 2009. And we started doing programs, or we did a week of programs. You know, I did mock interviews with patrons. My head of reference did cover letter writing. I roped my husband into helping people write their resumes. And we got really good feedback and a lot of traction with these programs. And the MBLC actually took notice of what we were doing, and their Libraries for Job Seekers grant was they took our idea and expanded it. And so that was really awesome to see that. And that was totally in response to what we were noticing. And not even me, that was my staff noticing and making a comment about it. Also in Whitman, we did the first community reads for the community. And we did the book, The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. I don't know if any of you have read that, but it's lovely. And I actually went to Guernsey because I was inspired by that book. And so that was a fun month-long celebration. In Whitman, I also wrote several grants for creating a health reference center and for creating some programming for teens because we didn't have any at that time. In Nahant, Nahant didn't really do any programming for adults. And so we built that up. And we also developed a teen program there, got the first tag going. History is a really big deal in Nahant, so we did a lot of programming, bringing in local authors and like reenactors, historical reenactor people. In Linfield, we do a lot with books. There's a lot of, sort of the book groups on different topics. We have a cooking club, although not a cooking club, a cuisine club. That was prior to my term, but I would definitely want to borrow that because that's what we do well. I have several ideas for things that I would like to do. One, I think a library is a great place to start a podcast. And there are several around. And I think that would be a really interesting way to connect with people through the rest of the pandemic and even further highlighting local businesses, highlighting town employees, stuff the library is doing. I have this, I mentioned before that I want to write a novel, and I really think we could do more with writing groups. And there's this really cool podcast I listen to, and it's like a 10 episode arc, and at the end of each episode, there's an assignment. So it's for podcasters, but it can also be translated for artists and writers. And I have this idea of doing a series around that, and then we each participate in that kind of thing. So I think I have ideas just because that's what I do. But I also think it's important to respond to what the community needs. So, there are a lot of the LSTA grants, and I saw that you all have one for the conversation circles, that kind of thing is really important. So even though I might want a writing group to keep me focused, if nobody else in the community is interested in a writing group, I think it's really important to tap into that energy. It's one of the reasons why I think strategic planning is important, because that's one of the opportunities you get to engage with people and ask them the questions you want answers to. We did that in Nahant, and one of the things I found was that when I asked people what they wanted from their library, people didn't really have anything more than what we were already doing. And unless they had gone somewhere else, at the time, Nahant was not automated. It was a card catalog based library in 2012. And so now they're automated. So that's great. But when I asked people what their hobbies were and what they did in their spare time, we got a lot of really great ideas for programming. So gardening, being outside, sailing, all of these things. So that information, when you say, what do you want from your library? Nobody's going to say, oh, I want books about sailing, but they might attend a program with the director of a sailing program, and make that connection that way. So I'd want to tap into what the community is interested in and then build the programming around that.
Okay, great. Getting more into the sort of the nuts and bolts, maybe, or
Sure.
not the program isn't, but sort of the traditional sense of, libraries are a place where we hold materials.
Yes.
For people. What do you have a philosophy with regards to the management of the collection?
Philosophy. Not.
Or philosophy approach?
Yeah, I think I am a practical person when it comes to things like this. I think physical materials need to be in good shape. They need to be current. They need to, be things that people want. I am a firm believer that weeding has to happen. And I can give examples. When I took over in Nahant, the last weeding took place in 1992. And so we had books about cancer and books about AIDS for kids from 1992, wiring books for your house from 1992. Those are extreme examples, but they're examples of what can happen if you don't maintain that collection. I think it's really important that the books are in good repair. So paying attention to that. I think digital is super important, and that's going to be a way that we need to increase, especially if people are hesitant to come into a covered space for a while. Current materials, finding out what people want, sort of practical.
Okay, great. Let's talk about, this is a managerial position. You're going to have staff. How do you, what's your management style? And how do you motivate staff?
Okay, yeah, that's good. I think my management style, is to trust that people will do their job. And if they don't, then you have to address that kind of thing. And unfortunately, that's the reality sometimes, that you have to deal with negative situations. I think that when you have an opportunity to hire, you hire really good people and let them do their jobs. I try really hard not to be a micromanager. There are certain things that I have very strong feelings about. One of them is that we should never call a book for a child who's learning how to read an easy reader. I think that's entirely the wrong language to use with kids and parents who might be struggling with reading that first book. But beyond that, as long as things are, done well, done on time, that kind of thing is fine. I like to trust that my department heads are running their departments well. I try to, I meet with my department heads now regularly, and I want to know if there are problems. I don't know, I think it's, when you work with a bunch of people 40 hours a week, you spend more time with them than you do everybody else in your life. So it's really important to try and figure out how people tick and how, this is kind of just people who run circulation departments have a certain personality that might be different from the children's librarian or the young adult librarian, and they both have really important skill sets, but they may not exactly jive. And so I sort of feel like that's my job, to create a team of people who are working towards the end goal. Trying to think. Yeah, I mean, I assume that people, in libraries, that people are mission aligned in some way, and that may not always be the case, because sometimes just having a municipal job is great and people want that, and that's okay, but they also need to understand that it's bigger than just a paycheck for the directors and for other people. Like, libraries have a very special space.
Okay, great. In terms of the hiring, you mentioned that you want to hire the best people.
Yeah.
How do you describe the best when you're hiring someone?
Yeah.
What are the factors that you weigh in hiring those people?
So I think for me, I've learned the hard way a couple of times that hiring someone because you need someone and you're in a rush isn't always the best way to go. Like, you need to find a person who's going to do the job, do it well, fit in. I have a bit of an instinct, I think, for seeing people on paper and seeing things that they something that they might have that doesn't come across. So for example, right now in Linfield, we had a position, we had 70 people apply. And I would say 70 out of 70 were people we could have talked to. And obviously we couldn't do that. And so we had, went through those applications, and I insisted that we interviewed 2 people that nobody else wanted to interview because they didn't have any library experience. And I said, we can teach library experience. We can't teach customer service, or you can do that as well, but like this attitude of serving the public. And we ended up hiring one of the people that nobody else would have interviewed, because I saw from her resume that she's got, that sort of customer service perspective that we really wanted in this position. One interesting thing is we're currently going through diversity, equity, and inclusion training at work, and in Linfield. And our last meeting, we talked about this idea of fit. And one of the things that's really important in Linfield, and I've had to fill five positions, 3 were empty when I started. And the team in Linfield is very close knit. They get along really well. And so having the right person in there is kind of more important than their qualifications. But in this diversity training, we were talking about this idea of fit and making sure that fit isn't code for some sort of internal bias. And I thought that was really interesting, and it made me stop and think about that in terms of what we were looking for and what I would be looking for in another position, and making sure that you're paying attention to that. I think, sometimes you don't get to hire people and you have to work with the team that you have already. And that's where I think it's, really important that the director talks to people, goes, visits the departments, checks out books at circulation. And I am kind of a goofy person, and I like to joke around a lot. And I don't want to be an intimidating person to people. Sometimes the director position, people automatically, put that in a weird spot that I just don't want to be. So I think, I work really hard to build relationships with the people around me.
Okay, good. Let's keep on going with relationships.
Sure.
We're going to talk about relationships with the community. How do you, what has been your experience in outreach and engaging with the community at large, and with other departments? You actually mentioned that something about that a little bit, but let's just focus on how do you get out and get people to understand the library and the significant role that it can play?
Yeah, I think it involves a lot of putting your neck out there. It can be intimidating to try and break in to different groups, and you might hear things, like when I started in Linfield, I was told that the senior center director doesn't like the library and to not even bother with the senior center. And I'm like, well, that doesn't, we seem like we could be a perfect ally, but having that piece of information. So I was able to connect with the director of the senior center through a colleague that I work with on Rotary, and he worked with her. And I was like, I heard this thing, what do you think? And he's like, no, she's great. I don't know what they're talking about, and now she and I have had an opportunity through COVID, now that we're meeting over Zoom all the time, it's a little easier, honestly, than trying to coordinate an appointment to meet in each other's office, when we can be like, can we talk for 15 minutes, or grab each other at the end of another meeting or something. And we're building some good relationships. I think, I know about myself in Whitman that reaching out to community groups was hard for me. I sort of expected that people would contact me and say, hey, you run the library, can we do this cool thing here? And that doesn't automatically happen. Those are relationships that you have to build. And so I would go, can't do a lot in person right now, but when you have the chance, I like to go out to eat. I like to, I'd introduce myself to people. I'd find the businesses that are around the library, and go do that, say hello, leave my business card. I think, I'd want to, the first interview I know the town administrator was on, and, be talking with them, trying to get involved in department head meetings at the town level if they are. Sometimes there are some natural partnerships, like I think with the senior center, there's some natural partnerships, and then there are others, like I know rec department sometimes is, it's not Parks and Rec, I swear. But you know, like the Recs department, a lot of times they charge admission prices for their events and libraries don't. And so there can be a tension there. I don't think that tension has to be there. And so we just have to figure out ways of saying, like, you're doing this paid event, maybe we could have a table and it's an added benefit for the people there. I think, you know, find out what the local organizations are in town that, you know, it could just be they want to put a flyer up, but they might want some meeting space. You know, if there's a topic of concern in the community, you know, finding out what that is and finding out how the library can help. In Linfield, it's, you know, opiate addiction took a huge toll in the community several years ago. And so now there's a big push for recovery resources, and a nurse reached out to our head of reference, and then we pulled together this resource, and are now becoming sort of a connection in the community for that. And people say, oh yeah, the library has these things, and we have some that you can just take home. You don't need to check out, so that people can just go. We have a private space for that. You know, so it's a lot of what is that, shoe leather? Is that the phrase that, you know, it's a lot of work, but it can be really fun and very rewarding when you can make those connections.
Okay, great. Do you have an example, I guess maybe you did already talk about this a little bit with your, with the senior center, but examples of working with other departments?
Yep. So particularly in Linfield, we've done a lot of work with, or we've tried, we do work with the Recycling Committee and Tree Commission, organizations that are always looking for ways to, or departments that are looking for ways to get their information out to a different audience. We are working is part of the substance abuse organization run through the school. It's called A Healthy Linfield in Linfield. I'm not sure if Northborough has a similar one. You know, so I'm on the board of that, and you know, we meet monthly, and that's a terrific I mean, it's a sad opportunity, but it's a terrific opportunity to meet people, you know, the heads of the local hospital and the recovery center and select board members, and you know, school board members, you know, so all of these different people are in the room, local clergy, they're all in the room at the same time, and we're all talking, you know. So today, for example, I had my meeting this morning, and we are currently in the middle of a community read around a kid's book called Guts. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's a graphic novel for middle grades, and it's about a girl with anxiety, and her stomach hurts, and she doesn't know why her stomach hurts. And so we chose this book as sort of a back to school, here are things you can do. We chose a kid's picture book called The Worry Book. And so we're having, you know, events and programs around that. We've done some pickup crafts. And so I was just telling the folks in this meeting this morning about this effort. And so Rotary was there talking about what they're doing. And I was, you know, one of the select board members was there, and the wife of another select board person was there. You know, several people from the school committee. So we're all doing our own thing to help with this issue. But it's a very community-based effort.
Right. Okay.
Initiative.
How about working with other area libraries? Is there much in terms of are you active in partnering with other libraries in the region? And
oh, yeah.
in either in Hart, Whitman, or Linfield?
Yeah. I am not somebody who can come up with ideas on my own. I need to borrow them from other people, and we are librarians, and that's what we do. So yes, so I've always been an active member of the Massachusetts Library Association. Professional development is really important to me. It's important to me for my staff as well to have opportunities to meet with people. You can learn so much just by, you know, visiting another library and going and see how things are happening there. Just in June, I started not an organization, but a weekly meeting with directors across the state, including some who are adjacent to Northborough. And we meet weekly and we talk about how we're all dealing with reopening plans for COVID-19. And so that's been a really great opportunity. And there are a lot of people from Western Mass in there, cross network, because, we have our networks. So, I'm in Noble now, and I used to be on the executive board of OCLN when I was in Whitman. And you can get kind of very close into those groups, but I think it's really nice to be statewide. And I really like the larger organizations too. I think it's good. I also think that we should be looking at other organizations that aren't necessarily libraries as well for opportunities to partner. So like museums, for example, or banks even. There's a lot of, I think I told you that story about how I met my husband through the bank sponsoring my summer reading program. But, like different organizations have ways to make connections as well.
Okay, good. Any questions any member has at this point? Go ahead, Mitch.
Talk a little bit, you already spoke a little bit about community. I'm particularly interested in any experience fundraising through the community. So whether that be trying to get a sponsor for an event, or fundraising to have more money for increasing the materials budget, or for to increase the endowment fund.
Yep. So, I've done some, I work with friends. Pretty much every library has a friends group of various strengths, I think. In Boston, I worked with the Boston Public Library Foundation pretty closely with the reopening of the Central Library. We did some pretty big ticket items there. We had a gala. We raised money for, the children's room primarily was the focus for me there. And it's quite extraordinary. If you haven't had a chance to see it, you should go. I still don't understand how they got the glass to work. When you go inside, it's this just a bunch of noise. And then the second you leave the room, you can't hear it. It's amazing. In Nahant, I worked with somebody who was a member of an organization who there was someone on the island who had a lot of money and she wanted to give it somewhere, and she wasn't impressed with the library thus far. And this woman had talked with me about something else, and she asked me to come up with a plan for a $2 million gift. The plan was for a small program that, if successful, could lead to something else. And so you bet I dropped everything and worked on that. And so, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but, it was nice to be able to think in that sort of broader sense. This isn't direct work with it, but I did just take a class through the University of Michigan, I think, has a lot of really good online professional development. And I took one on fundraising, and particularly in sort of that foundation-based finding people who might want to leave estate money, that kind of thing. So I have some techniques there. And then in terms of asking local businesses, a lot of that is, again, that knocking on the door, so to speak. There's a lot of money in corporations for their, in their marketing departments and their corporate giving. So there's places there.
Well, that raises the whole issue of your financial management overall. Can you talk to us about how you go about preparing the budget? What's your priority as you develop the budget in the process that you use?
Sure. I do think that the library should be part of is a team player in the town. So I think working with the finance committee and the town administrator or whomever is drafting sort of the budget plan for the year, and so if you might get a warning that we're going to have to level fund everybody this year, or you need to do a 10% cut, or you need to do 1% increase after salary increases, or get the lay of the land for that, and then do the budget, with the trustees as well about, keeping those parameters in mind. So I think it's important to follow those kind of guidelines. I do, however, think it's really important to be honest about what the actual needs of the library are that may not jive with what the town wants. And so, I will ask for another position, even though I know it's not going to happen this year. Maybe if I keep asking, I'll get it, and I can be persistent like that. And it's happened twice that I've been able to do it. So I think, it's really going to be an interesting budget year this year, figuring out what to do, because nobody knows what's going to happen next. And so having the opportunity, kind of a fluidity and knowing that you might have one set of documents due, and then when the revenues come in the spring, we might have to refigure that. I've presented in front of the finance committees in various towns. I've worked directly with trustees developing the budget. My experience has been very much that I do the budget and present it to trustees and get feedback that way. I don't know if that's how that works here, but I do really like doing that money side of things or accounting side of things.
Mhm.
I think it's important to be precise in that.
Okay. All right. Anything that you've done in the development of the budgets or your management of the finances? Mitch's question about fundraising. I guess another thing we could talk about, but is grants. What's your experience with grants? And then I'm interested in anything that's we'll call entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
That is sort of a little outside the box to bring additional revenue in or new services into the library. But let's start with grants.
Yeah. Okay. I have quite a bit of experience with LSTA grants. So those are the grants that are issued through MBLC. I actually worked with one of the departments back when I was in Whitman, and I was a grant reader for them. So I kind of have a perspective on how they look to read the grants. I have written Community Preservation Act grants. I've written Cultural Council grants. I took a class a million years ago on the Foundation Directory and that kind of thing. So I'm pretty familiar with grants and following deadlines, making sure you do the things. I think a challenge with grants is finding the grant that you want, and not just being, boxed into what, the 10 choices from LSTA are. In terms of entrepreneurial, you asked me that last time, and I was kind of befuddled, and I didn't really spend a lot of time coming up with another answer because I didn't have a good one. I think the best way to sort of be entrepreneurial is to talk with people who are entrepreneurial, and make them see that the library can be a partner. Michelle when she was giving me a tour, she was showing me the room where that the library had hoped to have people coming in and drinking their coffee and doing work, and it didn't quite pan out like that, and how Northborough is going to look towards creating a walkable downtown. I was like, that would be a really great way to connect with the local business owner, and coming up with ways that the library can partner with people in an interesting way, like maybe working together with, say, the children's department could do a program session while the parents are working with bankers to do, estate planning or, wills and guardianship kind of stuff, So, and then you make those connections for potential asks for money. Rotary in Linfield, we raise money to give money away, which I think should be our tagline. So finding the organizations whose missions it is to do that. The Chamber of Commerce, those are businesses. There are a lot of people who are working really hard on side gigs and side hustles, and finding out a way to get the library. I don't know if it would be a money making kind of thing, but at least it would be tapping into that energy and maybe letting those people do some hustling for you to find some funds.
Okay, good. One of the aspects of the position too, and I'm sure you've, I know that you've run across this before and your other communities, but facility management, maintenance. You've seen the Northborough Library now.
Yeah.
We're curious as to your thoughts about the library, and then your experience with managing the facility.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the town hopes to have a facility manager, but Right now, you have to be the one that had to deal with the issues that might come up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, I've had to shovel walks. I fixed a toilet once. That was an exciting moment in my career. There's a big joke in library director land about the things they don't teach you in library school, and building maintenance is a big part of it. Nahant and Linfield are historic buildings, so there's a lot of stuff that goes on. We had a Palladian window, which is one of those giant, beautiful windows, but it was many, many, many years old, and it was anytime there was wind, the window would shake. And so, I basically spent my first year pushing to get this fixed. And unfortunately, at town meeting, when it was approved to get fixed, they estimated $10,000, and it was closer to $100,000 by the time it got done. Because of all of the various things, taking a window out, it turns out, is a very expensive proposition, so just making sure. I did work with DPW. Obviously, I didn't go there and take the window out myself, but finding out who the right person to talk to is about that. Since the Northborough has both the historic building and the newer build, I feel like I've had that, because Whitman was a new building. I think it was maybe only 10 or 15 years old when I was there. So, and even with a building like that, like we had the air conditioning would break on the hottest days, and we had, HVAC issues, it feels like, all the time happening. And so you just have to figure out who to call and be on top of that and escalate things if it's, is it something that can wait until tomorrow or next week, or does it need to be done today?
Committee questions that we haven't hit it, that I've missed here. Anything?
Did we really get into the sort of the team building management style sort of thing?
Sure.
Motivation. Nope,
Yeah.
I totally forgot to answer that. So I think being transparent with people is a way to motivate. I think, in Whitman, with the economy tanking, and the library was constantly on the cutting block for funding. I didn't try to hide the fact that we really needed to keep our eye on the ball for people, and I tried to be honest about whether or not there were impending, cuts that could impact staffing, because that's really, I think, what people worry about. But that can be a tough sort of morale thing. And so I think it's really important to be, honest with everyone about how you're feeling, with COVID. So here's we got sent home, and so 3:00 in the afternoon, we were saying one thing, 7:00 in the evening, we were saying another, 10:00 Friday morning, we were done. And so we had like this kind of moment of like, what's going on here? And for me, I was like, I don't know what to do. And I didn't want to bother people. I figured we were all freaked out. And then after a couple of weeks, I met with my department heads weekly, because that's what we do, but I didn't want to bother the part-time staff. And then somebody, kind of tugged on my sleeve a little bit and was like, can we have a staff meeting with everybody? And, we had this great thing. And then we started meeting weekly, because they wanted to be bothered. They wanted to be included, even though, they weren't doing as much of the day-to-day running of the library. And these are mostly the circulation folks who didn't have a lot of physical work to do from home. And as we were building our reopening plan, at one meeting, I was like, just really honest about my feelings and my anxiety about this, and wanting to do it right, and wanting to make sure that, everybody on staff is safe. So I created a Google Drive for the entire staff. Up until that point, it was just limited to department heads and, various subgroups or whatever. And then I started a document where I wanted everyone to send their direct supervisor their concerns about reopening. And I didn't care how teeny they were. I didn't care. I wanted all of them. And so, everybody put together what their concerns were, and we consolidated them. And it was 16 pages long, this document. And during the next meeting, we went through and we went through it line by line. And one of the lines in there was, like, I'm really scared, and I was like, you know what, I am too. And this is something that I'm struggling with as well. And, I realized that this is an extreme example of what it means to be an employer. But, I love public libraries and I love the work that we do. And I'm inspired every day by my colleagues. But at the end of the day, I really feel like my first priority is to be a good employer. And that means to make sure that I'm following the laws, that people get their breaks, they get their benefits, they have the opportunity to use their EAP, that my door is open for conversations. I'm not perfect at it for sure. I've had way more conversations with my full-time staff than I have with my part-time staff. Have had more contact with my part-time staff over Zoom than I did the entire year before that. And I sort of regret that. And I think about how I would do that differently, and how I can communicate better with people. And I think in terms of motivating, I think communication is a huge part of that. Like, I love bringing food in, that's chocolate, that's my jam, all those kinds of things. But I think having a good workplace where people feel respected, and have opportunities to grow, is kind of the biggest motivating thing that we can do. And that's something I'm really trying to work on.
Okay.
Thanks.
Other questions that people might have? We're about out of time.
Could I add one thing to that?
Sure.
So one thing I think is really important is, and it's something that has driven me crazy when I've been an employee of someone, is I don't ever take credit for someone else's work. And that seems like a small thing, but if somebody's doing something, they're going to get the credit for it. And if somebody wants to thank the library and thank me for our hard efforts, the first thing I'm going to say is the team did a great job. And I think that's kind of, I feel very strongly about that.
Okay, thanks.
Any closing comments you'd like to make, Jen?
No, I'm really excited about this opportunity. And I know, that you might look at my 2.5 years here and 2.5 there as a problem. And I know that that's a risk, but I am, I'm committed and I love my work. And I've been just kind of done moving up the ladder. And I just want to be at a place where I can do really good things for a long period of time and build that team. And I really feel like Northborough would be a good fit for me. And I hope that you see that in me as well. I also want to say that, I know that the staff in Northborough has been without a director during a lot of this, and the assistant director stepped up to help. But even if I'm not hired, I'm happy to offer my experience, having been open for several months, to whomever is hired to help, because it's really stressful. And if they are not, haven't had to do it yet, there's so much that we can learn from each other and the things that have happened. So I just want to make that offer and thank you for your this opportunity and your time and all that.
That's great. Thank you. And I think we very much enjoyed having the conversation tonight and learning more about you and your thoughts about libraries, and in particular in your experiences and what you could bring to the Northborough Library. That's been very helpful. So great.
All right. Well,
Very
thanks
good.
everybody. Good luck.
Thanks. Take care.
Thanks, Jen.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Jim. Okay. All right, Deborah. Michelle, do you want to jump right in? Do people want another minute? People probably could use a minute.
I think we'll take 1 minute.
Michelle, Jen is ready. So whenever your minute is done, just give me the cue, okay?
Hey, Deborah, is that done via a waiting room, like a Zoom waiting room? Is that how that's done?
Yes, it is, Chuck. So that's how I can just see her in the waiting room, and when
Okay,
Michelle gives the word, we'll let her in.
okay.
All right, is everybody back? Nita, are you there?
Yep.
Just wanted to double check. All right, I think we're all back, so we are ready for Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer's coming in now.
Thank you. Hi, Jen.
Hey, Jen. You have to unmute. It won't be a very interesting interview if we can't hear you. So
There'd be a lot of guessing.
That's right. I will. It's good to see you again, Jen. And I'm going to turn you over to Michelle, and she'll walk you through the introductions, and then we'll get started. Michelle.
Thanks. Hi, Jen. Good to see you again. Just want to welcome you and say I'm going to have this is the full board of trustees. Oh, no. This is the board of trustees -1. So one person was called into a work meeting, so couldn't be with us. So I will just go down the list and have people introduce themselves to you and say hello. All right, so I'll start with Mitch.
Hi, Mitch Cohen, Vice Chair of the Library Trustees. Good to see you again, Jen.
All right, Jim Hogan. Let's see if you can do it. Unmute. We're having a mute problem.
Yeah, no,
Nope. Nope. Unmute. One more time.
It's a single click.
Just one click. There you go.
Poor Jim, he's been having a problem today. Jim is the secretary of the board. All right, and Nita.
Hi, Jen. This is Nita.
And Jocelyn.
Hi, Jen. Jocelyn McKellany. Nice to meet you.
Charles.
Hello, Jen. I'm Charles Recchia, board member. Nice to meet you.
Joan.
Hi, Jen. Joan Scott. Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Richard.
Hi, Jen. I'm Richard Tucker. Welcome. Good to see you.
All right.
All right. All right. We ready to get started? All right. We have about an hour, and we have about 7 or 8 topics that we want to talk about. Let's start with you explaining to us a little bit about your career, how you got into the world of public libraries. It's always interesting to start, and then tell us about what you've done, and then we really want to focus in on why Northborough.
Sure. So it's really nice to meet everybody. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I sort of always knew that I was going to be a librarian. I would say from about high school or early college. Sort of went to grad school, not really certain if I was going to do public libraries or academic. But I was able to get a job in a public library while I was working towards my MLS down in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is a really big city of a 250,000 people or so. Fell in love with it, honestly, fell in love with working with the public. So sort of made my decision based on working full-time in a public library. I worked down there for about 8 years. Loved every second of it, but I was born and raised in Connecticut, and after about 8 years, I decided it was time to move back north. So I took the job at the Boylston Library as their director, where I've been for about 9 years. And again, love it. Huge change from the Fayetteville system. I went from a huge urban city setting to a town of 4,000. But the people, people are people everywhere. So it's still a rewarding experience, even though it's a bit smaller. Recently, I got involved with the New England Library Association. So I started off as their VP/conference chair, mostly due to my interest in mentoring and conference planning, which came from a side gig as a wedding planner, which I'll tell you about some other time. Definitely an interesting experience with stressed out people. So they asked me to be their conference planner for the year, and that was last year. Fortunately, a little bit easier than the conference planner's job this year, since the pandemic kind of threw everything sideways. So I've been their president for this year. That lasts about another month, and then I'll be their past president, which has slightly different, less extensive job duties. So it's been really interesting to kind of get out of my little bubble of Boylston, kind of see how librarians through different states do things and what our similarities and differences are. Yeah, so then with Northborough, we're next door in Boylston. So I've always sort of known about the programs that you're doing. We shared a couple employees through the years. So it was always sort of on my radar as a place that seemed really progressive. I really liked what the library was doing. So when I saw the position come open, I started kind of looking through your long range plan and, trolling through the website. One of the things that really interested me about Northborough was that you had put out a diversity and equity statement a couple of months ago. And you have a confidentiality policy that talks about how you will protect your patrons and how they use the library and their data, which as a privacy advocate, I'm always kind of encouraging people to think about how libraries can protect their patrons. So that was really kind of an interesting thing that intrigued me about you. So that was why I decided to apply. I would like to move into a bigger setting. I was looking for a place with more diversity, with some more opportunity to take some of the ideas that I have and put them into practice. So here I am.
Great. All right. Well, tell us about your ideas.
Which ones?
Well, our next topic is sort of library mission. So what are your ideas and that you want to put into practice about what makes a library?
One of the things that had been kind of on my radar before before the pandemic and before 2020, but really is driven home by everything that has happened this year, for me, is that the library should be a place situated in the community where we're sort of at the forefront of diversity, of serving that community, of really understanding that community. I don't know if there are too many other organizations in any given town that are better situated, have a full understanding of what their community is and what they need. So I really want to lead a library that has a strong connection to their community, understands who they are, is committed to serving everybody in an equal way. Sort of this year, libraries have been kind of figuring out what our systemic issues are within the profession. So I would like to be part of those conversations, try to figure out how to diversify the profession and also how we might be missing opportunities to serve our patrons and how we can do better.
Okay. Can you give some examples of what you've done in Boylston that might reflect some of these ideas?
Sure. The first thing that we really did was we took a good hard look at the policies that we had. What are we charging fees for? How is that affecting our patrons? What kind of programs are we bringing in? What does our collection look like? We really we really had a moment when we looked at our fiction collection in terms of the types of authors, the types of genres, the topics that we were covering. And we realized that we had a real hard-boiled mystery problem. Way too many of our books were written by white female authors. A lot of them were a certain type of mystery. Our collection development was not balanced whatsoever. So that was really one of the things that we had to work on a plan to solve, and work on diversifying the types of authors, the types of books. You know, we were really, really heavy on the James Patterson and a little light on some of the first books from authors. So we've been working over the last couple of years to diversify all of our collections and to build a good core, current and popular collection that really honestly reflects the growing and diversifying community that we have. We got rid of overdue fines. We stopped charging for faxes. We were charging, I think it was $5 for the first page and then $3 for every page after that. And we found out that people that need the fax machine, really that's a significant sum of money. So that was one thing that we did away with. We stopped charging for a replacement library card. Other things like that. So we really, I mean, we overhauled our policies from front to back and really took a good hard look at everything. And I think that was really the basis for what we have done to be more inclusive. So,
what about in terms of programming? What types of programming do you think, or have you put in place, or do you advocate for in a public library?
So when I first started in Boylston, we were doing one story time a week and one craft a month for school-age children, and we had a book club. That was it. So now we had, well, pre-COVID, we had a program almost every day. When every month we do our publicity for our programs a couple months ahead. So when we are finished with the slate of programs for the month, we look to make sure, you know, do we have something for different age groups? Do we have something for different interests? You know, we're not always just doing crafts. Now we're doing Fortnite for kids or a secret pizza party or something like that. We're doing more business programs, more career development, things like that. Those have been really popular. We're doing yoga and stress relaxation techniques right now, which has been really popular. We started doing those weekly because they've been so popular. When we sort of take a broad annual look at our programming slate, what we're trying to do is just make sure that everything is thoughtful and deliberate. and not just sort of thrown in. So for example, our children's librarian had decided she wanted to do a diversity story time. So she was looking for a very specific person. In this particular case, it was a drag queen. There are no drag queens that we know of that operate out of Boylston. So she was looking further and further away. Wasn't really a community-based thing, and it was out of the blue. So I said, let's take a step back and we'll look at our children's programming as a whole. You know, it's not so much having one person come in and read a story as it is making sure that all of your story times, so right now we have 4 a week, are all of our story times incorporating diversity all the time, instead of just doing one story time where it's here, this is our diversity story time for the month. So we started incorporating different books, different guest speakers. So now well, pre-COVID, we had about 1 a month. And it was not specific, we're going to go look and try to find this person that meets a certain quota, but it's, you know, are we making sure that our speakers reflect the diversity in our community?
So how do you define, you know, you probably answered this already when I asked you about your ideas of a library for the library, but how do you define the success of a library in a community?
I think we know that we are successful when we hear about patrons telling other people in the community how great of a resource the library is. So for example, in Boylston, anytime somebody new moves into town and posts on we have a little community Facebook page, I frequently see people say, make sure you stop at the library and get a library card and, you know, go to their programs. This is an awesome way to meet people. So that's one indicator of success. We do look at our numbers as well, our circulation statistics, our visits, our door count, hits on our website, things like that, as sort of a data-driven indicator of success. You know, as long as our stats aren't significantly going down, we can be reasonably certain that what we're doing is successful. But really, it's those personal stories of people either telling us or telling other people what kind of positive experience they've had.
Okay, all right. In Boylston, you, and I'm taking this right off the references that we spoke to, describe to us the change in the library's image and reputation, and they spoke very highly of your ability to do that. How did you go about doing that?
The first year, I really took a good hard look at what was going on. Rather than come in with any preconceived ideas. There were some sort of gimmies with the inside setup of the library. It was quite crowded. It really needed to be weeded, and there was a lot of furniture. Their circulation desk area, for example, was actually a combination of about 8 different desks that were all different materials, all different colors. Just visually, it looked very busy. So the first year, I didn't make too many drastic changes. We just sort of went through and we started weeding the collection down. Once we were able to weed, we found we were able to get rid of some of the furniture that really didn't match. We got rid of the carpet that had been installed upside down. So instead of keeping the moisture out, it kept it in between the padding and the carpet. So it smelled delightful. So my dad and I went in on a weekend and just ripped it out, threw it in a dumpster, painted the floor, kind of just put a little work into it. And then we kind of celebrated even like small changes. So like we got rid of the carpet, we took pictures before and after. put them on social media, put them on our website. Here, look, we're making changes. Started to build a little bit of momentum to get people to come into the building, which sort of served to highlight how inadequate some of our facilities were. This was before we renovated, so we had very old bathrooms, and our children's room looked and smelled like a basement. It was a very small area. So, you know, we figured we'll get more people in, and then we'll start to increase our programs. We talked about, you know, these weeding projects that we did. Again, pictures before and after. Come and check out our new improved collections. You know, here we're trying these programs, come and see. Got people in and started to just kind of build a reputation for being open, being welcoming, being forward thinking, making new changes. And we just kind of kept that going through the years. Even after we renovated, we made sure that we were still offering something exciting and new while still maintaining our I have very high standards for customer service. So while maintaining that as our kind of base.
The discussion of customer service seems to speak somewhat to your management style in terms of expectations of your staff. How would you describe your management style, and how do you motivate employees and hold them accountable?
My management style, it sort of changes depending on the person. I've found through the years that having one rigid style and when you treat everybody exactly the same, you can actually wind up treating people unfairly, if that makes sense. Everybody has different needs and responds to different things. So I try to adapt my management style based on the person that I'm managing. Some people need a lot of, I don't want to say hand-holding, but a lot of guidance, a lot of instruction, a lot of positive feedback. And some people would rather just be given a project and, you know, here are the metrics, here's the deadline. Let me know if you have questions. Off you go. I'm going to leave you alone to do this. So I've tried to, develop an understanding of who the person is and what they need, as opposed to just deciding like, this is me. Real me is very, very positive. I like to give compliments. I like to give feedback. Through the years, I've come across some people who don't respond well to constant praise or too much praise. So I try to dial it back a little bit for some people. But when it comes to motivating, I'm a very high energy person. I try to listen to everybody's ideas and take their feedback and sort of combine it into something that works for everybody, that takes into account, you know, what everybody's concerns are, what their fears are, what their excitement is, and just sort of, you know, put all the pieces together. I find that the more involved you get your employees, the more motivated they are, the more they take ownership of change, and the less you have issues. And when you do have issues, direct communication, here are my expectations, which, you know, should really be clear from the start. But if somebody's not living up to it, then you just kind of go back over it. I coach soccer, so a lot of the methods are kind of the same. I try to coach my employees as opposed to dictate or punish. So usually I try to start with a positive conversation and see what's going on if somebody is not really living up to my expectations, which are usually simple, easy to understand, and I state them very clearly from the get-go. So everybody that I interview for jobs really understands this is exactly what I'm looking for. So there's no surprises.
Okay. Along those lines, when you're interviewing people for jobs, what do you look for when you're hiring them? What's the central focus of your decision?
It sounds strange, but I really look for people who don't necessarily agree with me. I don't want an echo chamber. I don't want a team that has, 10 people that all have the same strength. because then we probably all have the same weakness. So I look for people who seem like they are, and it's hard to tell in an interview sometimes, but I'm looking for people who seem like they understand how to advocate for themselves, that they would be comfortable in a team environment where you're able to express your opinion honestly, and that you will respect a difference of opinion as others will respect yours. I also look for people with a strong customer service background over people who may have a strong library background, although it does help to have an interest in libraries, and position dependent, you may need to have some. But some of the best employees that I've hired at the library currently work there, and it's their first job in libraries, but they had a great customer service outlook, great work ethic, and they're not afraid to ask questions, and they're not afraid to disagree with me. So that's what I look for.
Okay. The going back to sort of still focusing on relationships, but looking at it from a broader perspective outside of the internal staff, how do you go about, maybe you already touched upon some of this, but let's elaborate on it in terms of community outreach. How do you build a sense of, if you were to come into Northborough, how would you build a relationship with the residents of Northborough and engage the community with the library?
It's a bit of I come at it from a couple different angles. First is getting to know the staff and your regular patrons who are already in the library. So getting out of your office, getting a feel for the workflow, the daily, your regular patrons, what a typical day is like in the library, what your patrons are coming in for. So you take a look at the statistics for the last couple of years, try to identify trends, and attend some programs, try to meet some of the people who attend story time, or once we go back to normal, attending book club, who is a regular at book club, and getting to know those people first, because those are really your champions. And the other approach that you take is to get out of the library completely. Some of the greatest success that we've had is we have t-shirts that have our logo on the front. They say Boylston Library, and then they're like sports shirts, so our last name is on the back. And we just wear the shirt out at community events. So I will go to watch the Tohoto girls soccer team, or the Pop Warner football, or we'll go to the local theater or Tower Hill, or just, whatever community event is happening. If we're out and we're attending it, we're wearing our shirt, we're introducing ourselves. I try to attend, the garden club meetings. I introduce myself anytime there's a new town employee. Try to just make sure that my face is out there, and find people where they are and get to know them. And, if the opportunity presents, then I will talk about the library, which the opportunity always presents itself. So, it's really fun to just be able to get out and be a part of the community and let people see that you care about them as people, no matter what they're doing.
Okay. Do you have some examples of some collaboration with other town departments that to maximize the impact of the library's resources?
Sure. The one that comes to mind that we were the most excited about before March was we had a partnership with the Council on Aging and the Worcester Art Museum. So we have a trustee who is also a docent at the museum. So he would meet people at the library. We'd have a little snack. He would have like a little 20-minute, it's not really a lecture, but just like, this is what we're going to look at today. This is what you're going to see. This is what to look out for. And then the Council on Aging would bring their van with their driver, pick everybody up at the library, bring them over to the museum. We used our museum passes to give everybody a discount. And then he would give a tour of the museum. Maybe the museum director or an employee would come out and kind of greet everybody and say hello. We did that twice a month we had been about 6 or 7 months. So that was one that was really, that had a wait list because there were only so many spots available given the number of passes that we have. We started having people say, can I still join the tour if I just pay full price and drive myself? So we knew it was really successful. We have a partnership with the Garden Club. They have started, this year they were going to do some junior gardening programs to teach young kids how to garden, specifically vegetables, but also plants and just basic identification of different plants and things like that. But they have been doing programs with us for a long time. The Historical Society usually does a collaborative program with us. This year, for the last 3 years, we've had a program that is joint funded by the school, the Historical Society, the library, and the Council on Aging. It's usually a holiday themed program. Last year we had a Dickens, he dresses up like Dickens and did like a dramatic reading.
Okay.
And that drew quite a crowd. That was really fun.
Great. What about regional, relationships with other libraries in the region? Or shared programs or?
We have a partnership with the Berlin Library for some of our museum passes. And that has been, I think, over 10 years, simply because the smallest package for some of them is way too big. I think the Ecotarium is one where there's no way we could use all the passes in 1 year, but divided in half. We also share book page subscription with them. And in the past, we have done some shared programming where if we can book a program at a couple of different libraries in the same day, the performer will give us a discount because the travel is negligible. So that has worked out really well. I am part of a little group of different directors in the area. We were meeting once a week when we first shut down, just to kind of stay in touch about online programming and kind of the state of libraries and reopening. I found that to be really helpful, really grounding to see that other towns are kind of in the same situation. And we had been talking about, is there a cost sharing potential for, if we all need web design services, or if we want to kind of go in and collaborate on a bigger author, especially if it's a virtual event where they're just doing one and we're kind of advertising it to the different towns. So that's something that we kind of have in the works right now.
Great. Okay. Do you use much social media? What platforms do you use how do you communicate with the community at large?
We have a newsletter that goes out weekly, which I think is probably the thing that gives us the most direct engagement with our patrons. Our Facebook page is still fairly active. We use Instagram. We have a Twitter. Twitter doesn't really, it's not very good for directly communicating with patrons, so we don't use it very much. But we do find that sometimes people are looking for the library and they start with Twitter. So we have the account and it does tweet things from our Facebook page. But we've kind of stayed away from it because it just wasn't really going anywhere. Our Facebook page and the Boylston Neighbor Facebook page turn out to be the biggest social media successes that we have. We tried TikTok for a little while and TikTok users really didn't connect with us. And it was taking forever to make 30-second videos. So the ones that we did were good, but we couldn't really find what was in it, what was working for us. So we kind of shied away from that.
Was the community newsletter, was the library weekly newsletter in place when you arrived, or is that something?
They were doing a monthly or bi-monthly e-newsletter at the time, and it was just basically, here's the information about book club and any other programs that we might have coming up, and a link to our website, and that was it. So now we do one weekly. There's all of our new books, all of our new DVDs, our programs, other information about the library. Sometimes we'll promote something that seems to have stagnated. So it's a bit more robust. It's more engaging. It's more colorful.
Yeah.
Because it used to just be black and white text. So now there's a little design element to it.
Okay. Other questions that people might have right at this point? Mitch?
Hi, a little bit more on engaging with the community, but to beg for money. When there are programs that you might want to fund, or increase the operating budget to buy more materials, or I don't know if the Boylston Library has an endowment fund or anything like that. What are your experiences with looking for money locally from the community?
I'm great at looking for money locally. When I first started, we didn't have a programming budget at all, which was part of the reason that we did so few programs. And part of that was we had a very small friends group that they did great, but they were very small. So there was a limited amount of stuff that they could do. So the first thing that we did was bolster their membership, and then we kind of gave them some ideas for fundraising so that we could have a bigger programming budget. So now we spend about, let's say, $5,000 or $6,000 a year on programming, which includes supplies as well as speakers and food. We do have an endowment. We have a foundation as well as a friends group. They do a lot of the larger fundraising for us. So when we were trying to renovate, they raised about $300,000 or $400,000 in grant and private donations for us. We needed the rest from the town, so it was a really big marketing push, and a lot of that was related back to the number of programs that we were doing and drawing people into the building to kind of get that word of mouth. But a lot of it comes down to numbers. People really wanted to know that we were being as efficient with our ask as possible, that the numbers made sense for what we were doing. So we had to do a lot of legwork to educate people, to convince them to vote yes for a $3 million project. In terms of every year with the budget, sometimes we need more materials. Recently, we've needed to expand our hours because we were so busy that we were having trouble fitting everybody in the building at one time. We were running out of days to do programs. We had more requests for evening hours, weekend hours. So we did a survey, worked it into our long range plan. And then when we went to present it to the town, we gave them all the data that we could find that would be helpful. So the number of visits and how historically that had increased, the number of people that wanted evening and weekend hours, the number of circulations, the number of programs, the number of program attendees, pictures of our full programs, pictures of people kind of jammed into our tiny parking lot and then parked down the street. And I think all of that really built a narrative that was an easy sell when we were to ask for budget increases. So we've had several through the years since I've been here. The hours, we've had more staff added. Our technology budget went way up because it was, pretty much non-existent. It was the cable bill. was basically the line item. So now we have a technology plan and we can replace things before they're completely broken, which is great for me because I am also the IT person, and it's great not to have to try to fix a computer with an operating system that's about 4 versions old, because I'm not that not that technical. So yeah, it's a lot of just consistent messaging, a lot of getting your friends, your foundation, the trustees all on the same page and advocating out in the community, and your patrons as well. So
Thank you.
Experience with grant writing?
I do. Smaller grants, we've gotten 1 or 2 every year for from the Cultural Council, we've had Walmart grants. Most recently, we had a federal grant for some programming relief. The Fuller Foundation, which is a local foundation, gave us $300,000 for our renovation project, which I did have a big hand in writing that grant. You know, it was about, they were more interested in the historical workings of the inside of the building and the preservation of it, as well as making it functional so that, you know, it was the library and the patrons are better served. So that was a big one.
Okay. What is your, so you're responsible for putting the budget together each year? And how do you go about figuring that out?
For me, it starts nowish while I'm doing our state financial report. It's a good time for me to kind of look back historically on the costs of things and what we're getting for that money. I'm sort of, vaguely aware through the months if there's a big need. So when we needed like an additional staff member, we knew that right away because we couldn't cover all of the hours. Nobody was allowed to take vacation because if they did, there wasn't enough people to staff the building. The hours people would tell us. So some of it was very easy. The rest of it is just, I'm looking at, did my recycling bill go up? Is the internet, did the internet bill change? Is it fast enough? Is there anything that we're going to need to replace? So I take a look at our technology plan. Has the cost of something gone up? So our audiobook collection, for example, our vendor, I'm really not even sure what the reasoning was. I never really got a clear answer, but it went from about, I would say $20 to $40 per audiobook to almost $100. So, can I find a vendor that will charge less? And if not, then I might need to make some adjustments to the budget. So I start getting all those numbers together and I engage the board fairly early so that I can get their feedback. We can take a look at the numbers, start having conversations with the town to see what other asks are coming up for the town this year. If there's a lot of things that are really important, then we might, just go for what we really, really need and try to keep everything else as level as possible.
Sure. Can you give us an example of I'm going to say an entrepreneurial, but a creative idea that you've put in place to sort of something that's cutting edge and innovative for library services in the town of Boylston?
Sure.
Or in your prior position?
Sure. The one that comes to mind first is in our children's room. We have a space issue. I mean, we're a small library, so any space that we can use that would otherwise be dead space is well served. So we were short on bulletin board space, but we had this big, long, skinny, dead space above our shelving that was otherwise just going to be blank wall. So my board chair and I started brainstorming, what can we do with this wall? We can't really put corkboard up there because you would have to be able to reach above your head and then back about 14 inches to be able to get to the bulletin board while standing on a chair. So probably not the safest. So we eventually arrived at the idea of a video wall, which is 7 screens that are sort of linked together. So we have a Blu-ray player. We have BrightSign software, which is a display software that allows you to sort of weave together the different screens. So you can either show one long panoramic image across all 7 screens, or you can show, 7 different ones. They can be on timers, so they're kind of rotating. We also have the ability to play, you can put a PC hook up to there. You can also we have iPads in the children's room, and you can actually mirror the iPad to one of the screens while still using the other 6 for something different. So the kids can actually, when they're playing the Osmo games or some of the apps that we have on there, they can throw it onto the screen and they can kind of all watch and play along. Works for small study groups too. Instead of hovering over one laptop, now they have a bigger screen that they can use. So it was really multifunctional. It's really fun. We made an I Spy, this giant I Spy game that, we just kept it up and we played it a lot. I say it's innovative. We ended up on the cover of Computers and Libraries for it. And they asked me to present in Washington, D.C. So I've done a couple talks on it. Really caught on. We've had a few requests from other libraries for the list of technology that was included so they could do something similar. So it's been really successful. Our customers have loved it. Our biggest fear was that they would hate it because it looks like, it looks like Vegas when the TVs are off. It looks like there might be some like betting screens or something like that. But when they're on and they're done correctly, it's bright, it changes the feel of the room, it's something interactive, and it's been really successful.
Great, thank you. We've spoken about the facility needs and your experience in managing a facility, but you kind of already gave that one away when you talked about ripping up the rug. So apparently you know about managing a facility. What you've had a chance to visit the Northborough Library. What are your thoughts regarding the Northborough facility?
Well, I'm really jealous of the big windows. I love those windows and all the space you have. It really seemed like there's a lot of opportunity inside your building. And I know that you're kind of looking at how to temporarily rearrange some of that space so that eventually when you do reopen, you're protecting your staff and customers kind of socially distanced and allowing them to use the library in a safe way. And I think we had sort of talked about some of the original intents of the space when you renovated versus kind of what's happening now. You don't really need an internet cafe because the building has wireless. So how do you repurpose some of that space? So, of course, my brain just starts going with ideas and like, oh, what can you do with the space and where can you move your Mayan temples so that they're temporarily not taking up all that space in front of your desk, but if you can still put them back if you want to. I think with Northborough, the big thing would be obviously getting the collection weeded so that you have more space to kind of play with the collections and move them around. But overall, it's a beautiful space and there's a lot of potential there.
Okay. Good. Board questions, comments? Anyone? Okay. Some sort of closing thoughts, Jen, on what why you're so excited about Northborough and what you think you would do if you came?
Oh boy. The first thing that I would really want to do, obviously, is provide a vision and some practical applications for getting the library reopened at a point when it's safe to do so for the staff as well as the patrons. So developing a plan for patron reentry into the building, of course, dependent upon what the numbers in Massachusetts continue to do. Hopefully they don't go up too much more. And then long term, it does look like your strategic plan is up for renewal. I think you had mentioned that the staff is kind of working on some basic ideas for that. So kind of getting that going so that it's ready for submission when it's due next year, and getting to know the staff in the community.
What do you think the impact of COVID will be upon library services?
Wait.
I mean, you're with the New England Library Association. That you people must have talked about this. Of what could libraries be in the future as a result of the COVID situation?
I think the main thing that we have learned this year, first, I think everybody's probably pretty much okay financially through this fiscal year, but next fiscal year, I think there's going to be a need for some strong advocacy at the local and state and federal levels. I think libraries and towns in general are just going to need some financial assistance. The forecast looks a little bit, I don't want to say scary because that sounds too doom and gloom, but uncertain. So definitely libraries are going to need some strong advocates to make sure that their budgets stay level, or if there are cuts across the board, that they're not disproportionately cut, as I've seen in some places already. The other thing that we've kind of come across through the New England Library Association is the need for staff advocacy. As soon as the pandemic happened, it became glaringly obvious that non-union positions need somebody to help give them answers. You know, what's safe, what's not safe. Unfortunately, not all managers across the United States are doing the safest things for their employees. They may have different priorities. So just giving somebody an ear, giving them information about their rights has become something that I've gotten a crash course in. It definitely wasn't the New England Library Association's focus when I became the president, but you know, we roll with it and we just change and adapt. And again, you know, our members are customers. So if they have needs, then we're going to try and find ways to fill them and give those answers out. But I think keeping people in the profession as well as continuing to draw people in to library schools and to convince people not to exit the profession simply because they perceive a public building to be unsafe, I think is going to be really important. And I don't have all the answers for that yet, but we're working on it.
Great. All right. Well, I think that wraps us up. If there's nothing else. And the board will be giving this some consideration. And on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for coming in tonight or being here tonight virtually. Well, however, I don't even know what you say anymore about that.
No.
But thank you very much, and I'll be in touch as we move forward. All right?
Thank you very much. It was great talking to all of you. Have a great night.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Jen. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Still in
Yeah.
the meeting, right?
We're still in the meeting, yes.
All right, then I won't be too dramatic.
All right. I think if I may, the committee, the board has a choice. Obviously, you have multiple choices here. One choice is, the first choice is, do you feel ready to make a decision tonight? And have a discussion and make a decision? or would you prefer to come back for another meeting?
What does the board say?
I've learned what I want to learn, and I'm ready, but I've also had the advantage of having a second interview with all of them.
Right.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Mitch. I feel like, okay, I think I can do this. I think I'm ready. But again, we've had the advantage, and I've had the additional advantage of being the one who did the tour with everyone when they came to see the library. So I, again, had time to walk with them, observe them, listen to them, see how they interacted with some of the staff members. So if other people feel that they need a little bit more time, I think I'd be okay with that. And I think, Mitch, you sort of said the same thing. So for those of you who have spoken to these people for the first time tonight, do you feel that you need a little bit more time to think this over, or do you want to move forward and make a decision tonight? Nita?
I'm kind of ready and not ready as well. Meanwhile, I did my kind of back and forth, but I still need maybe a couple of days to go back and see exactly what our library needs and what the the three different people, three different approaches. We need to get in through this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a different view to each and every thing we ask. So I'll need some time to think about it. I know my answer, but I still need to give everybody a fair chance,
Okay.
Well,
Richard?
If we're going to take some more time, maybe it would be helpful to those who have only seen these applicants once to hear a little bit about what you and Mitch learned during your first interviews, whether if there was anything different that you learned then that we should know about. Because really you and Michelle, or Mitch and Michelle, have a little different information than we have. So I think maybe if you could share any things that stick out in your mind, that might be helpful.
True.
And Jim, I think you're on mute. You have to press your mute.
I'm doing it in it.
Got it. Nope.
And
just click it once. Click once. There you go. You're good. Nope.
Oh, don't touch anything.
Hang on. Are you doing
You can
it?
also hold down your space bar while you're talking, and that'll keep you.
Oh, it
Try
says
that.
I'm.
Okay. Oh. Can
One
you?
syllable at a time.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. It keeps going all by itself. It keeps going back to mute. It's got a I don't want to give it say it has a mind, because I know it doesn't, but it has a it's ornery. Anyway, I would like to review my notes, compare them to the documentation that we had, and just try and think back to what I was hearing tonight from the candidates. So I would like to go another couple of days and then get together and perhaps have a conversation among us, not a long one, but a conversation among us, exchange some comments that each of us might have. And I would like to hear, I think that's always valuable. I'd like to hear what each of you think about the candidates, and particularly Mitch and Michelle, as Richard said, as you've seen them more than the rest of us had. So I would like another couple of days. I'm sort of leaning in a direction. I think I know where I'm going, but I really would like to be very comfortable and careful with my final decision.
Okay. Yes, Joan.
Now,
I agree that I'd like a little bit more time. I agree with what Nita said, that everybody has a very different approach, and it seems like different strengths and different weaknesses. And again, like to have a little time to review my notes and have some time to discuss with everybody else, opinions and impressions.
Okay.
If I may, I think that is the best choice, and I think Jim's description of the process is the right one. To think about it, review your notes. I'm sure this is available on your YouTube channel. You can go back. You went through it once. You can go back and go through it again. Fast forward through sections if you'd like, and then get back together and have the discussion of what I recommend is always really focus on the strengths that each one of the candidates will bring to the task, and then just determine from that which strengths are the ones that you need the most and you want the most, and make your decision.
Okay. Joan?
I do have one question. I think it was the first candidate, Sandra, she was the one from Leominster. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
She made a comment that the people on the interview committee knew why she left Leominster, but that wasn't apparent to the rest of us. So I wondered if you'd be able to share that.
I guess the best way to put it is that there was a mutual decision by everyone that there was some new trustees that wanted to head in a different direction than the trustees that had initially hired her, and she felt that it was their right certainly to move in that direction, and she certainly wasn't going to stand in the way of that. So just decided on both sides to do something differently. And I'd be happy to elaborate upon that with offline.
No, that's fine. It's just something that she brought up in it, and
Yep.
we didn't have that background. So thank you.
All right. Then I will ask a sort of a process question. If we get together, it will be a public meeting, so we have to post it. We need to post the agenda 48 hours ahead of time,
Right.
which either means that we meet on Friday night, or we're looking at next week,
Yep.
the week of the 19th. I think
Probably the big issue you have is your Zoom
right.
platform has limited because of the way that you use the Zoom account.
Right, yeah, so at the town level, they only have just so many slots for us to be able to have meetings.
Their slots might be, and I'll just throw this idea out, their slots might be greater if you were able to do this at either an earlier time, I would think, or an afternoon, or I don't know. So
I'm looking at just the town website calendar.
Okay.
Mondays and Tuesdays are heavy. There's only one meeting, right? That's scheduled, posted at this point for Monday night, which is the Board of Selectmen meeting at 7. Tuesday, there's a planning board meeting at 6. sometimes there are other things that they know have come up that have been scheduled within the Zoom world for which Andy hasn't received the agenda, so it's not posted there yet. I've run into that. But there's nothing on the boards for Friday, and usually there aren't many meetings on Fridays.
Right. So you could, if you could do it on Friday, or it sounds like maybe if you could do it, and again, I'm not sure of people's schedules, Monday at 5 to be done by the selectmen's meeting at 7.
That would work for me. Does that work for those of you who are still employed? Instead of being not quite, but almost retired.
I can do Monday at 5.
I
Same
can
here.
do that.
I can do that.
Yeah, that
Alright.
works for me as well.
Works for you? All right, so if I put in a request and we'll ask Deborah to put in a request for a meeting for the trustees for Monday, the Zoom request.
I'll be happy to do that.
And I will submit an agenda. I will do that and send that off to the town clerk's office for Monday, October 19th at 5 o'clock.
Blocked my work calendar, so no one can keep me past 5. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so if that is our decision, we'll give you the weekend to think about, the rest of the week, the weekend to think about this. We'll get together on Monday. The Zoom authorities willing, we'll get together Monday at 5 o'clock, October 19th. If there is a problem with that, for whatever reason, I will get back to you as soon as possible to let you know. And unless does anybody have any other questions or comments that they would like to make at this time?
I will jump in and make one more comment,
Mhm.
if I may. The same offer that I made last week when we met. Now that you've gone through the interviews, you have their resumes, you have their cover letters, you have their reference comments that we included. If anyone has questions about circumstances of these individuals, reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk you through it.
All right. I'm missing one piece. Here it is. All right, so yeah, we all did get that from, I had sent that to you from Bernie. It has his comments about the references. I don't remember if I sent it out. I know Joan asked a question. She had emailed me to ask, what was it we had specifically said that we were looking for? So I don't know that I shared with the full board. Bernie, the
profile?
You did the profile that we used as the ad.
Yep.
If I did not share that with the full board, I will send that out to all of you as well. Is there anything else that you think you need from us? All right, if you don't, if nobody has any other questions, I would be willing to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there anyone who would like to?
I'll make that motion.
Why, thank you, Mitch.
Second it.
And you second that, Richard? Thank you. All right, so I have to do a roll call vote. So, Mitch Cohen.
Mitch Cohen, aye.
Jim Hogan. Was that an aye? Thank you. Hamilton's not here. Nita Karanjkar.
Yes, I.
Jocelyn McKelney.
Jocelyn McKelney, aye. Great job with my name tonight, by the way.
Thank you, I've been practicing. Charles Recchia.
Charles Recchia, aye.
Okay, Joan Scott.
Joan Scott, aye.
Richard Tucker.
Tucker, aye.
And Michelle Rehel also says aye. The motion carries.